Hello and welcome to episode 173 of Gamers and Lost Mark podcast. I'm your host, Antony, and joining me this week for this Game of the Year special, it's not one, it's two Sparks. We have Mr. James Thomas.
Hello.
And Mr. Steve Carter.
How do?
Hello, chaps. How are you doing?
Good,
Very good, thank you.
Yes. Oh, God, we've got to remember how to talk as a group now, haven't we? We can't just look at one.
It's awkward.
I'm going to pull up a different Skype window so I can see you both now this time round.
Power of editing. I'll make us sound professional and awesome. We should just hold our hand up when we're going to speak. Right, how are you guys? James, how was your Christmas?
It was good. It was good. I had a whole week off before the festivities began, which was nice. Bit of a decompress from work, and Ali was still at work during that time, so I had a nice week of just watching films, playing some games, going out for runs, and just having my own space. Built a Lego dinosaur as well, so all good.
Nice. That did look really impressive, actually, that Lego dinosaur. It looked like it was I mean, you were just fast building, but it looked like it was a really fun build.
To be honest, the actual build itself wasn't the most scintillating because there was just a lot of tail or a lot of body. It was interesting, some nice side building bits, but the best part was just the finished product, because it's a huge T-Rex from the Jurassic Park gate set, and it's about the size of Berry. So
right.
As soon as I built it over like 2 or 3 days, doing a couple of bags a day, I just integrated it with the rabbits. And so Hopscotch was just a bit freaked out, like, what is this? So I just slowly sidled the T-Rex up to where they were sleeping, and just the horror in their eyes. But after a while, I got some nice pictures. They were eating from the same bowl as Rex, and he was in the hutch, and Berry at least went to go and see what was up to him. This is what happens when Ali leaves me alone for a week and I have no human contact.
You come home and you're putting together a nativity scene with rabbits.
No. After 4 days, Ali came back and I built a bunny fort.
Oh my God.
I had 6 cardboard boxes that I can't remember where we got them from, but 6 huge cardboard boxes, and so I just made little warrens and runs and little doors between them all, and so there was you just see the rabbit disappear into the boxes and there's come out about 2 hours later. I was like, we can't have people round while this I was like, but the bunnies are enjoying it.
Ali gets home, you're like, please never leave me on my own, please. This is what happens. And Steve, how are you, sir? It's been a while since you've been podding. How was your Christmas?
Yeah, it's been a while. But yeah, it was good, thank you. Yeah, a bit like James, I had a bit of time off. After Christmas, I had about a week off, including sort of the weekend and the bank holidays and whatnot, after Christmas Day. So it was nice just get a bit of refreshment, just catch up on, like I say, just kind of binge watch some TV, some movies, getting back into reading as well. So, but yeah, catch up with a couple of games and whatnot. So, but yeah, it's just nice to, over Christmas, it's a bit mental with visiting one side of the family and then the other side of the family and trying to keep the peace and going here, there and everywhere. It's just nice to sometimes just sit at home. It's
just not a break, is it? It's not a break at times.
No. Well, that's it, because we have to coordinate, 'cause obviously there's Anna's side of the family, my side of the family, and let's do Christmas for one day and then Boxing Day for the other, and should we have it ourselves, and then there's New Year to think about as well, and and it's just like, just in between, it's just nice to just sit at home in your pyjamas or your pants and just not have to leave the house, worry about anything, just eat the leftover food and just binge watch something and just lig about and chill. So a couple of days of that, but then it's just back to the grindstone of back to work. But yeah, it was nice to get some time off.
Nice, absolutely superb. Have you seen, James? You've seen Star Wars, haven't you? You've seen
I have
you've
indeed.
Seen
yes,
the Rise of Skywalker.
Quite nice. Went to the Outsourcers Flicks, who we work with. It was their Christmas party. Their Christmas party was on the day of Star Wars. So
oh wow!
Yeah, we went out for like one of the lunchtime viewings, and then went for some food and some drinks afterwards. So yeah, like it felt like we were naughty school kids on a class outing. We were just like the back 6 rows of the cinema or so.
Wow, that's so cool. What a great atmosphere as well. Steve, have you seen Rise of Skywalker yet?
Not yet. I was hoping that we'd go see it over Christmas, because I was trying to persuade Anna to go, and she said she will go with me if we will go to one of the Everyman cinemas, which I don't know if you have got those down London Area, but the ones with the sofas that sell like pizza and wine that you can sit and watch. So usually the way to coax Anna to something like that is, because she's not a huge Star Wars fan, is usually just copious amounts of wine or something to make the viewing a little bit easier. So Her Hindu is the back end of January, so I'm thinking maybe I can be one of those people that goes to the cinema by myself and sit in a corner and watch it come then, so I don't have to maybe drag her along, if I kicking and screaming say she not going to watch it. So I will catch up with it eventually, but just not yet.
Right. That was my first day of my holiday. I think it was the 18th. So it was that. That's how I started my Christmas holiday, which was Blue Water in the morning. So at the X Plus early in the morning. James, what did you think as a Star Wars fan that you clearly are?
Leaving the opinions aside for one minute, the most interesting thing I found, because we went out on a social with it with so many people, that was like a good few dozen. Just there were some absolute die-hard Star Wars fans that I'm sorry put you to shame. Like, they were talking about, or maybe you've just been holding it back on the podcasts and in the WhatsApp groups, but the extended universe and the theories and how that film played into it, my mind was boggled. How many theories and waves and threads of things could run through it. It was fine. No, I haven't cut out. No, that was the end of the review. It was honestly it wasn't. It's so hard to actually talk about what I did and didn't like without even trumping on some spoilers at this point in time, because some things that happened so early on, I didn't know they were going to happen. Literally in the first 2 or 3 minutes. So yeah, it was a 3 out of 5 from me. It was fine. Steve, go in with moderate expectations, and you'll have them at least met.
It's worthy at least a 3.
So I
Yeah,
exactly. So I went in dark on this, as you guys know. You know, I kind of scared of the internet like about 3 days before. As soon as I heard that reviews were dropping and stuff like that, I just kind of hid from the internet. It's my standard fare with movies that I just don't want to spoil. And I'm so glad I did, because when I started looking at my Twitter feed, I did notice there were quite a few people that were spoiling things. You know, they were going, oh, and this and that, and being very kind of loose-lipped. Kevin Smith's one of them. And there was lots of that, especially on YouTube as well, when you're looking at kind of like kind of thumbnails and things like that were spoiling it an awful lot. So I kind of went in and I sat there and I kind of thoroughly enjoyed it. I gave it, as part of my kind of letterbox thing, I gave it 5 out of 5. You know, this was a damn near kind of perfect Star Wars movie for me, and I was blown away. And I sat there at the end, and I just sat there and I waited all the way to the end of the credits, just in case there was something right at the end. There isn't, Steve. You can go. And so I was, so I left, and I was just thinking before I turned my phone on, I was like, there is no way that anyone can be mad at this movie. It rights the wrongs of the bad of Last Jedi. It does everything we need to do, and it is just amazing. And then I turned my phone on and just saw the wave of not hate. I wouldn't say hate, but there's real polar kind of opinions. People loving it like me, and then some people just absolutely just hating this movie, just thinking that this movie was incredible. So I was really shocked. I'm there standing there waiting for my burger, reading just kind of going through the stuff, and I was really shocked to see that people did not like Rise of Skywalker. So, but nevertheless, I thought it was an amazing movie. Again, without some spoilers, there were some things in there that made this kind of Star Wars nerd incredibly happy. You know, there was just so many things that just kind of really made me happy, and I can't wait to go and see it again. I'm kind of looking to go again kind of very soon, just to kind of watch it again. I think I've got to go and clear out storage at the moment on Saturday, but I might just spend.
So that can be your treat afterwards once you've cleared it out.
Oh, I might just do it whilst then Nicola will be. So I'll just go. I'm going to storage now. Right near storage, there is a cinema, so I'm just like.
Do you think the second time through you'll actually be able to I guess I've spoken to people who are Star Wars fans and enjoyed it less than your 5-star review, and they said the second time they saw it, they felt they could take it in more, like the shock, the surprise. They knew what was coming, and so could just appreciate what was unfolding, rather than going in with I believe this should happen, or this is the crazy scenario I think should unfold. But now they know what it is, they can actually go back and go, right, that's what the universe has said. Now I can sit there and take it in a second time, rather than just being on my edge of the seat, figuring out what's going to unfold.
100%, absolutely. I think it's just that kind of. I try not to. The reason why I don't watch too many trailers now, or watch the trailers a lot, is because sometimes when you do watch a trailer, And you see it time and time again. You know the beats of the movie, so you're waiting. Oh, well, and then your head starts kind of to wander, going, "Well, that bit hasn't happened yet, or that bit hasn't yet." I remember watching Suicide Squad. The trailer for that was played very heavily throughout that summer. Whenever we went to the cinema, which was quite a lot in the summer, you just saw that trailer time and time again. And so when you went to see that movie, you really did know kind of what was going to happen, because the trailer ends up being kind of almost a beat for beat of that movie. So there was like, oh, there's this, and my brain was just kind of filling in those gaps. And so I try not to do that now. So I only watched the Star Wars trailer probably about 3 or 4 times. But I'd love to go back again, just now knowing what I know, to just enjoy JJ's vision once more and just really kind of enjoy it again, because I just absolutely loved every second of it. It made me cry, it made me laugh so much. I was clapping. I grabbed Nicola at one point. She punched me. It was a roller coaster of emotions. It was absolutely fantastic.
Excellent. We'll have a spoiler cast afterwards when she signs off.
Yeah, exactly. We'll kick Steve off, and then I'll show you just what a Star Wars nerd is all about, James. So, over the holidays, you guys were playing lots of games. So, James, what have you been playing?
So, I carried on with Demon Tilt. Last time I was on, we spoke about the obsession that was the really weird gothic pinball particle effect explosion extravaganza that was Demon Tilt. And for the first day I was on holiday over the break, I felt I put far too many hours into it, and I had actually uninstalled it for my own good.
Oh my God!
There was just a point where I go like, I've got 15 minutes before I said I'd go out for a run. I'll just have another couple of and then an hour and a half passed, and I really like it. I really got into it. I think by the end, I understood the table a lot. I was using some of the achievements to set myself goals as to try and push my score, push my understanding of how it all fits together. And that was as good for me as trying to get the high scores. I think the achievements in that game are nicely placed to actually try and help you explore the possibilities. So like lighting up the letters on each of the 3 tiers or so, and just giving yourself that sub-target. Like the score, if you target the score, I think you're just going to send yourself insane, because it happens or it doesn't. Whereas at least trying to get the balls in the right place to activate all the modes or so, there's something you can strive for even on an awful run. But yeah, it was just really good, and the fact I had to uninstall it for my own good probably says that I would still be playing it to this day if I had that modicum of willpower. But someone was showing me the Switch version that's got, you can rotate the Switch 90 degrees and you can see the entire table.
Oh wow!
On the length of the Switch, if you have the Joy-Cons either side. And there was part of me going, during the time I was building a bunny fort, so had nothing better to do with my life. I was going like, I wonder if there's that option on the Xbox version. I wonder if I could turn the TV 90 degrees.
Oh my God!
It was only the thought of what would go wrong if it was like, no, another claim to the insurance. So yeah, at some point in time, I want to see if I can actually do that with like my old PC monitor or something like that. Can I tilt it 90 degrees and get the whole screen in go? As a counterpoint to that, because Demon Tilt is just an assault on the eyes, I started playing a game called Toripon, which was a game I saw advertised on Twitter just before the break, and it's off Itch.io, and people attracted me to it because they described it like Pokemon Snap. Now, Pokemon Snap is one of my favourite games on the N64. They actually only discovered after the N64 had basically been and gone. And in Pokemon Go and Toripon, you roam around an environment with a camera and have to try and take pictures of the wildlife in situ. And it's not like a bird watching type thing, because you go around in Toripon, an apartment somewhere in Japan, and there are just birds everywhere. There's a duck in the bathtub. There's some sort of chubby canary that seems to be doing some sort of drinking game on top of a washing machine with one of the red cups that you find in so many American high school movies. There's just lots of weird little setups. There's a load of blue tits or something just hovering around a laptop trying to search for something on Tinternet. And it's just lovely. Like after the high paced, frantic nature of Demon Tilt, going to something like Toripon was just a real nice antidote. Just a nice, soothing, calm thing that I could play along. But it had a nice level of depth to it as well, because there was only a certain amount of birds in the apartment when you start. But when you found them all and photographed enough, then more will start to appear, like behind your back or in other rooms or so. And so it gives you a reason to go back through and explore it. And it's a real short game, but it's just it's a lovely little experience. As I say, just like a nice, calming alternative to Insane Pinball.
And what was that on? And what platform was that on?
That's on PC. I think the website's just itch.io. And I can't remember if it's a pay what you want or like $6.99 or something, but it's really worth it if you're into Pokemon Go or just want something that is a little outside of the normal. Maybe this is lovely because it's got a great style to it as well. It's very bold, very colourful, but also hyper pixelated. It almost feels like it's a Game Boy camera resolution, but on a PC desktop.
Right.
So it's huge blocks of colour that stare back at you. And so half the fun is just seeing if that little motion in the background is part of the house moving or is it another bird. And so it adds a little obscurity to it all. You can turn it off because it can be a bit queasy at times as all the colours shift. But it's worth it just to keep the style going.
I'm just Googling that right now. It sounds really interesting.
It's very colourful, and it's worth it just for the silliness of it all. Because all the birds seem to be quite cute. Just finding a duck roaming around a bathtub where a fat pigeon sits on the soap dish staring at it. It's just got its own gentle sense of humour, just in the silliness of it all.
There's a bird with a knife. There's a bird with a knife.
Yeah, you were not what that terrified me. Like this is such a nice game, and you take a picture of something, then you come back into the kitchen, and there's a thrush walking around with a carving knife. So this is going to get dark.
Oh my god, looks superb. That looks absolutely superb. That's Toripon.
Toripon. It's we'll put a link in the probably the extensive show notes on this one.
Yes.
More animals as well. Also played Jurassic World Evolution, which is a game that came out the summer of 2018. I almost said last year, but summer of 2018. And I played it so much then. I think I put like 50 hours or so in and rinsed all the achievements from that. But they released a Jurassic Park expansion for it at the start of December. And it does a nice twist, because a lot of the Jurassic World Evolution setup was all about like the gyrospheres and the viewing galleries, stuff that you see in the Jurassic World film. And then the Jurassic Park pack brings in likeness, so the voice actors, or at least voice actor likenesses of the original cast, and just takes it back to basics. You can only have the Jeep driving through the park. It's got the original skins for the dinosaurs, and just sets you the mission of trying to regrow Jurassic Park. So it's just little tweaks on the original formula, giving you different tools, different buildings that just curve the Jurassic World Evolution gameplay just enough to make it worthwhile. And I think especially after a year away, it's what I needed. It brought me back, what made me want to play through it, and just hearing Jeff Goldblum just chew the scenery with his lines was just beautiful. Beautiful. There's like, you've got a contract if you want it. It's yes. I will take contracts off you every day just to keep hearing you what he's going to say.
His voice is like jazz. His voice is just like the. I've been watching a program called The World According to Jeff Goldblum, and every week he tackles a different topic. So last week it was coffee, and he's done gaming, he's done barbecue, he's done tattoos, and it is just. It's amazing. It's just seeing Jeff, just kind of these worlds unfolding in front of him. So he goes real kind of deep dive into all of these things, and it's just absolutely superb. He gave up coffee like 6 years ago, and he starts out and he goes into the Wild West and has cowboy coffee, and
it's just pure caffeine.
Yeah. He's just. I mean, I think he gave up coffee, but he's probably still running on the coffee that he drank kind of back then. And it's so good. The gaming one was really good. Kind of bringing it back to the podcast. He kind of went to Fortnite streaming, and that was really that. He went to like a Fortnite tournament. And you could just see his mind being blown at that. That was just really interesting. I love him. I love him so much.
It's good. It's worth it just for the. And I don't know if they've got the actual actors for the other two roles, but good likenesses at the very least.
Yes,
very least.
Nice.
Have either of you two played Jurassic World Evolution?
I got it.
It's on Games for Gold, wasn't it?
It is. It's on Games with Gold now, isn't it? Is it still on Games with Gold, or is it gone
but yeah,
off
possibly
of that?
for another week. Yeah.
Yes, until
mid-January.
maybe until the 16th of January it'll be there.
Yep.
I played it when it first came out, and kind of played that, but I haven't played any of the expansions because they brought out quite a few expansions, haven't they?
I think they've done the usual thing where the main game is free, but then you have to pay for the expansion, so they don't mind putting it on Game Pass, Games Gold. So
yes,
yeah, it's just a way to lose yourself because there's something so nice about. I think the original Jeep skins were unlockable in Jurassic World Evolution, but then just being in that classic green and yellow and red Land Rover, like first person in the driving seat, going past the Dilophosaur paddocks and going through the big gates, I just brought such a smile to my face at that point. And I love it. It's good.
I love it. There is chaos in that game. When a dinosaur breaks out of its enclosure and it's just kind of walking, it did panic me a couple of times when I was playing it, but it was so much fun. Suddenly it was like, you get that alert to say that there is a dinosaur loose, and it could be a herbivore, it could be a carnivore, but it's just loose and causing panic and havoc.
The most ill-behaved dinosaurs I had were the stegosaurs.
Right.
They are grumpy buggers. They cause more trouble than any of the carnivores I had. They were constantly getting lost from their friends, so complaining they were alone. But as soon as they got near a fence, they tried to get through it to get to the food stalls or something like that. It was just carnage. I ended up having to make them like a little isolated pen just for themselves, as far away from civilization as possible.
So that they could just see each other all the time, and then just kind of, yes.
Yeah, then complain they get, no Nemo spaces. Oh, God.
Yes. Superb.
Ali and I also started playing Picross on the Switch.
Right.
So this is something that we've played before. It's Picross S, and it's Picross, which is the almost Sudoku type grid. You've got that big square grid, and you've got numbers across the top and the side, and you have to try and figure out which squares are filled in and which ones are blank, and it reveals a puzzle or a picture at the end of it all. And it's just gentle. It's just gentle, and we've really loved Picross. So of an evening, we'll sit down and just do a few puzzles together, because Picross S on the Switch has got a nice capability where you can each have a controller and both play on the same puzzle. Right. So you can help or hinder or take different corners of the grid, but it's just gentle. If you like puzzles, do like a Picross. And at the other end of the I say cooperative in quotation marks, because I played Heave Ho with my brother.
Right.
And Heave Ho is again on the Switch, and it's a relatively simple game. So almost like Gang Beasts. Mm-hmm. You are a creature and you control your grabbing in your hands with the different sticks and triggers. So you can grab and you can swing, and it's in a 2D environment, and you have to make your way over platforms, like literally just circles or lines in the air. If you let go, you fall to your death and splatter and come back. And so you have to almost swing and trapeze your way around. Got essence of Mount Your Friends as well with that. But it's just insanity, because you can try and grab onto other people, you can hurl each other across the map, for good or for bad. And just most ridiculous of all, it's got a fart button that when 3 out of the 4 of you are sat in the little nest at the end waiting for the 4th to get there, and then you're just waiting there and you take your mind off it completely and just let go of the button so you're not holding on to anything. And then Matt just, you suddenly realise too late that his creature is just vibrating slightly. And you, oh God, he's going to do it! And he just lets out this guff that just sends the rest of you flying.
Oh my God.
It's got that sort of like New Super Mario's just quotes cooperative, where you all have to get to the end, but there will be shenanigans along the way. And when you like, there were moments where we were all making a string of 4 little creatures and trapezing across the map, and it was all quite fun. But yeah, then there can just be madness as you try and get in your way and disrupt and poke and just have a little bit of a race. It's a really nice little party game, good for couch co-op on the sofa. So if you've got a few friends around, I recommend having a look. And if you really want to have a look at the Giant Bomb. Quick look at it, because I've never heard people shout so quickly. Nice and calm for the first 30 seconds, and then just warfare after that. So. Yes, so that is my. I have talked about. I've got one more game, but I'll save that for Game of the Year at the end. But that is the quick quick rundown of the Thomas Gaming Christmas.
Wow, that sounds like a good gaming Christmas. Steve, how was yours? What have you been playing?
Not as extensive as that, and I'm just wondering where I actually find time to play all that, to be honest. I know you had a week off.
Week off and bunny forts.
I'm going to say between the Lego dinosaur and bunny forts, it's like, where have you found time for all this? I've been playing Luigi's Mansion a bit more, which I think we spoke about last time I was on, before Christmas, I think it was November I was last on, but yeah, I'm still ploughing through that, so I'm finding myself sort of like dipping in and out of it more, so I'm not kind of sitting and playing it for a long time. I'm kind of just having an hour here and there, so if I find on an evening that I've just got some time to kill, if Anna's still working or not home yet, that sort of thing, so just have an hour on there. So I can't remember where I am. I think knowing that the last place I got to is the Egyptian one, where there's a pyramid in the...
Oh, okay.
I think it was the room where you tried sucking all the sand up or blowing all the sand away, I think, is that right?
Yes.
So
are you telling me you haven't?
Well, I started with great intentions, and then I was like, yeah, if I'm going to spend an hour just clearing this out, so I think I've progressed a little bit further on from there, but that's nowhere near the last sort of significant area that I've been to. But it's just we'll come on to it as part of the inevitable game of the year sort of spiel, but yeah, it's just, I found myself just enjoying that sort of a lot more than sort of the other things that I've played this year. It's just a nice sort of refreshing game that you can pick up and drop as and when, and just Luigi at the front as is James's favourite brother out of the two. It's nice that he represents, and James is even representing with his Luigi shirt as we speak. Now it's just, even though he's mute, 99% of the time, there's still a lot of charm and humour and wit that comes out, through the acting and the sort of the scripting of the ghosts and how they appear and how he is, that sort of thing. So it's just typical Nintendo doing what Nintendo do, isn't it? In terms of how they bring characters to life and worlds to life without having a script as such, or even voice acting. It's all written dialogue, isn't it? So yeah, so that's been
one of my favourite things about Luigi's Mansion was Luigi. Luigi was he was just animated so well. There is one boss in the game where it's a disco level. So there's like a disco floor and the boss is like a DJ. And when the music starts, Luigi's just clicking his fingers. So as he's just standing there, you just stop and you just see him just like clicking one of his fingers and kind of doing a little kind of jive. It was just so adorable. He was just amazing. I've also been playing Luigi's Mansion. I rolled the credits on Luigi's Mansion like kind of very early on in the Christmas break, and it was kind of one of those ones that it just left you wanting more. I really enjoyed the game. I loved the game. I only got a C rating, which annoyed me slightly, but I think I spent too much on Golden Bones at the end because the last boss was a bit tricky. So I just kind of I died once and then I went back and then bought like 10 bones, which I really shouldn't have done. Yeah. So I might have got a B rating because I think I only used one of them, so I wanted to go and sell them and trade them in, but I just really enjoyed like just playing as Luigi. It was just absolutely fantastic, and I know there is more content that's coming, which is kind of more almost multiplayer stuff, but I could do with a Luigi game that's now kind of out in the wild, because there's a bit where you kind of almost you go outside and it just looked really, I loved the look of it, I loved the art style. I was like, I could do this, like
Luigi's World.
Yes, let's leave Mansion behind and go to Super Luigi's World. But it was very cool. I really enjoyed. I absolutely just loved it. I thought it was a great game.
I know what you mean. For me, it's the when you get the new elevator button to go to the next level, it's kind of like that in itself is just enough to like say, well, you think, oh, I'll stop for a bit, but when you've got that next button to that next floor, it's like, oh, but I'll start the level and see what it's got, and then you find yourself opening a couple of rooms and going in a couple of rooms and searching some chests or cupboards and whatnot, and then it's like you find a gem or you find something behind a portrait and you're like, oh, then you carry on and carry on. It's one of them games that you can just think, oh, I'll put it down, like James was saying, you think, oh, you'll spend 15-20 minutes on it or so, then you've an hour and a half passed because you've suddenly cleared another full floor. So I'm not usually one for sort of hoovering up collectibles or something, but when I've been finding those gems, it's like, ooh, I found a gem, and then you think there's only 5 per floor, and then you've suddenly got 3. It's like, there's only 2 more. Then another one, then it's like just that little itch to polish it off. So I've really enjoyed that, and it's, like I say, inevitably it'll be part of the conversations later on, so I won't go too much into it. But a little bit behind, which something I'll talk a little bit more about, which again will be in the conversation, is I finally got Star Wars yesterday or the day before. That finally turned up, so that was on my boomerang list because I've had Yoshi's Crafted World for a while. Then I sent that back, and then they kindly sent Star Wars back out to me. So it's not in my top list because I've not played enough to gauge it. But I've just got onto the first world that you leave to after you've departed when you've been to the temple, or cave in the first part of the game, and that is just a fantastic looking game. Even just from the starting sequence, the starting section, and then the first parts of the first world, and then when you travel into the next one is just incredible, and it is just. I know it sounds a bit like a silly thing to say, it's like a proper Star Wars game. You can get the feel that it's like a proper Star Wars game pretty much from the get-go, and it's like we've had a lot of questionable Star Wars games, movies, that sort of thing over the last few years, but kind of it feels
definitely
like
movies. Definitely.
Yeah. Don't start him off. We've let that go. We've let that go.
Shake my fist at you.
Kicking the hornet's nest. But given obviously the recent popularity with the new trilogy, I think obviously this has had more time, more effort put into it in terms of its scripting, its direction, the narrative, that sort of thing, and it shows immediately, and it's a fantastic world in terms of how it looks and how it's even just the characters and the detail and the animations and just it feels genuine, and in a lot of ways it feels like you are just watching a movie or a Star Wars TV show, and even just the sort of the beginning section that I've played, just the combat feels really tight. It feels like it's really tight, and it's like a perfect bundle, as does the sort of the adventuring, the climbing, the wall running, it doesn't feel like it's been, my main concern with it when I first saw the trailers for it was trying to be a bit too Uncharted-y or like Tomb Raider, with the climbing, the swinging, the wall running, that sort of thing. But excuse me, it feels like that breaks things up a little bit, but it's not. That's not the main focus, and thankfully there seems to be enough meat in between to not feel like it's just fleshed out. So, like I say, it's not. Yeah. I've not played enough of it to kind of give it a deciding or a final thought, but certainly the first few sequences that I've played have already kind of impressed me a lot.
Oh, you're in for a treat. It just gets better and better. And I think it's probably a really good time now to jump in as well, because it has been patched. I think there's been a kind of maybe 2 or 3 patches that have happened since its kind of release. So you're probably getting a lot of smoother version of the game as well, because there was a few kind of clunky things that Stuart and I kind of talked about, with like falling through the worlds and things like that. But I think they've kind of patched all of that out. So you might kind of get a much better experience. But you're absolutely right. It does really feel like a good Star Wars TV show. Right from the start, right from the get-go, the characters, the setting, and like I say, we'll get to it in a minute when we talk about Game of the Year.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah. And then the last one that I've even kind of later on this than even Star Wars is I finally booted God of War up. So I've had that sat there pretty much ever since it came out, which is not last year, the year before now, I think. 2018.
Yes, I think it was like March or April 2019.
Yes.
2018. Yeah.
So it's been sat there for donkeys, and again I booted up because it's kind of guilt tripped me by being sat there for so long. Me and a lad at work were talking about Star Wars and how I'd not played that, and he'd mentioned that obviously God of War is a little bit the same as that in terms of the world is. It's obviously you're on kind of on rails as it were, but you're kind of free to explore a little bit at the same time. So it was there were similarities between the two, so I thought, well, do you know what? I'll give it a go. I'll finally boot it up and give it a whirl. And I've still only got the standard PS4,
Mm-hmm.
But even on that thing looked fantastic, and that I think nearly actually sent my PlayStation 4 into meltdown, because I was sat on the sofa and I was sat there and I was like, what's that noise? And because it sounded like it was like, what is that? And then I put the TV on mute and I got up, and it's like, honestly, it sounded like an airplane landing or taking off. Honestly, it was. I mean, it's probably because I've not used it to actually play a game on for so long, so it was actually shocked that it needed to be used beyond just being used for Netflix or Sky Go or something. But yeah, that even just the starting sequence on that as well. That I wasn't a massive fan of the early God of War games, but that already seems like a complete change, but also something like a complete step away from what it was, but still kind of keeping to the sign of the core content. But that in itself, again, that hooked me pretty much straight away just playing the opening sequence. So I know I'm way behind on that one, given it's now nearly coming up to 2 years old, but still, that kind of felt like it could have come out last year, in the way it looked and played and whatever. Certainly it seems to have held its sort of, I say age, but for like the 2 years it doesn't seem to have aged to any detriment at all.
No, absolutely. I mean, I started playing that as well. I started playing that on New Year's Eve, because New Year's Eve, I was at work, so I was kind of off from the 18th all the way through to the 30th, and I went back to work for a full day, but then my firm kind of had an early doors on New Year's Eve, so Nicola had a full day, so she wasn't finished until 5:30, and at 3 o'clock I was like, right, I'm going to go down and game, and what I should have done was thought about, what game am I going to play when I kind of have these free kind of 2.5-3 hours, before Nicola gets home. So I kind of went down and I was like, I don't know what to play. I was almost paralysed by choice and by there's nothing I want to play. And I remembered, same as you, Steve, I had God of War sitting there kind of on my cross-media bar, and I just was like, right, okay, I'm going to jump into that, and I just started playing that, and I really liked it, because I got that as a game for Nicola to play, because she was out of her kind of single player adventure story game that she likes to play. She didn't have one. She ended up playing Breath of Wild in master mode, which is really hard. Is
that where, do you get less health and the monsters are tougher, or is it
yes.
more than that?
No, it's that they introduce more. There's new monsters that come in, but a standard Bobkin is now a tough Bobkin. So a standard one is now blue, but there's also a red one as well. So they kind of have, and also if you hit them with a stick and the stick breaks straight away, if you don't keep hitting them with something else, their health regens.
Okay.
So even right from the first plateau, I just saw Nicola running, and behind her was like 4 or 5 Bobkins and something else just kind of following her. It was quite funny. But now she's found Majora's Mask, so that means that they accept you. So you can now kind of move around the world and stealthily take them out and things like that. But it's really good. It really adds an element to that game, because she started playing God of War. She probably killed me for saying, but she started playing God of War, and she was angrier than Kratos at this game. So it's just like, I think it was a case of, it was our first day after Star Wars. It was our first day of holiday. She was like, right, I want to play a game. She'd been thinking about this. I want to play a game. I want to enjoy myself. And I think she put too much pressure on her and God of War, and in the end just kind of like started raging, and then just continued playing Demon's Tilt for a while. And that's when I was like, right. So we had some lunch, and I was like, right, what about, and we were talking about Breath of the Wild. I was like, what about Breath of the Wild? And then she tried the master mode, and she's still playing it now, kind of like dropping in and out. And it's really good. I mean, seeing that again on the big TV, I was like, oh, I want to play it. I really want to play that again. But I was playing God of War on New Year's Eve, and like I say, and even with the PS4 Pro, I had sound cancelling headphones on, and then I took my headphones off, and it was the same, Steve. I thought my PS4 Pro was going to explode. It was making so much noise. There's something about that game, obviously, that's making it kind of whirl very quickly, and I think so. But it does. It looks absolutely stunning, doesn't it?
Well, that's it, and it just goes to show that if it's making a PS4 Pro nearly melt, then it must be really taxing for just a standard PS4. And it's like you say, there must be something in that game, and I mean, it's not surprising given how it looks that's just causing that PS4 to seriously stress out. And like you say, it's with good reason, because there's times in it as well where I think it's the start where it's just like a bit of an initial sequence, but it's actually interactive. I think it's where you're chopping the tree down, So when it first started, and I'm just sat there watching it, and I'm like, well, is he going to do anything? And then it's like, oh, it's like you want me to carry on, and it's like I didn't realise it had cut between the sequence to actually playing it. It's like it was like almost like that was the standard throughout the whole, through the whole section that I played. So again, it's no wonder, that it is actually as strenuous as it is when it looks that good. And if, like say, if that's maxing it out on a PS4 Pro, then it makes you wonder what he's going to max the next sort of PS5 or Xbox out, doesn't it? Really. So,
have you got as far as the Stranger, the battle with Stranger?
I finished that. I did that, and then that's where I put it down, and I'm still to continue. But that in itself is so an epic sequence, isn't it? It's again that's you just think, right? So he's done. He's beat him. Then he's come back again, and then he's done him, and then, he's back again. But it's just that's like a sort of a Marvel-esque fight scene, isn't it? It's just on the sort of that sort of scale, but then it just doesn't seem to end. But it doesn't feel like it's kind of overstaying its welcome, because it's like it's kind of giving you that little bit of story and that sort of background detail as well as part of that sequence as to why he's there, why it's happening. It's just kind of dripping you this little bit of information. It kind of leaves you a little bit of still, well, why did that happen? And then that's obviously when you kind of progress onwards from there, isn't it?
It's really interesting because it really does give you that kind of high-octane fight. The 3 levels, it's a typical boss battle where you've got 3 levels. So, you kind of constantly having, like, cutscenes. Have you seen this, James? Do you know kind of what we're...
Yeah, I think I played about 8 hours of God of War and just sort of bounced off it. To be honest, the Stranger fight at the beginning I thought went on for far too long for what was supposed to be an introductory fight. Yeah, I can see what you mean when it came in for, just introducing the story or so, but... For a game that professes to be, big open world, here's lots of action or so, and it's you're sticking me in this grind fest full of QuickTime events, and you're not really selling yourself the promise of what comes later, and so it almost made me put it down very early on.
You sound like Nicola. That's exactly what she was saying. She stopped at that. I mean, the interesting thing is it really does pump the brakes after that, doesn't it? Because I was saying to Nicola, just get through this. And I think she was kind of struggling on like the 3rd section of it or something. And she was like, I don't get what we're doing. This is too early to bring me into this. But that's when she kind of like turned it off and threw the controller at me. So that's kind of, but it was just so good. It's so good. And I've played some more and I am kind of constantly kind of in awe of that. So, Steve, was there anything else in your kind of gaming list, or is that kind of your smorgasbord of gaming?
That's pretty much it, really, apart from a couple of things that I mentioned in sort of the list that are scattered around. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like I said, I've been more sort of since last time I was on more with sort of TV shows, movies, books, that sort of thing. I kind of ploughed through The Witcher and whatnot, so I've not played as many games as what James seems to have done. But yeah, I'm trying to...
I've barely watched any telly, so it probably balances it.
But I think I mentioned it to you guys in the sort of the build-up to Christmas. I kind of not had as much time as I kind of wanted to, or to play games, but given, I'm trying to get back into it and sort of back into the swing of things this year, so hopefully next time we come to pod, I'll have polished these games off that I've just started.
Awesome. Excellent stuff. For me, I think Luigi's mentioned God of War. The only 2 other games I played Tools Up with Nicola, so I think in between kind of Christmas, but when having a break in kind of Christmas and kind of hosting Christmas, we played some Tools Up, and that was real fun. Stuart had jumped in and kind of said that he was enjoying it, and so we left it for a Christmas game, and we jumped in thinking it was going to be very kind of overcooked, manic, but I have to say that Tools Up there's something very relaxing about Tools Up. It has the same mechanic of you've got to get 3 stars, you've got to do it right. You have to look at your blueprint, and then you have to do the rooms. You have to, and so with Nicola, we've got to get 3 stars. We can't move on until we get 3 stars. But it was far less manic. It was far less chop this, do this, do that. It was like, right, okay, we've now figured out what we need to do. There was some restarting, but we figured out what we need to do, and now we can get to that point. We know how we can get to that. So bar me kicking a paint can over or doing something like that, I think the only manic mechanic that they put in is right at the end you have to tidy up. So you have to take all of the paint, the carpet, any spillage, you have to take it all out of the house, of the apartment, of the level that you're in, and that can be kind of fun and a little bit manic sometimes, especially when it says you've got one item left and you don't know what that item is and you're trying to find it and you're spinning the level round trying to find the last spillage or some water or something like that, and it's really good fun. It's tools up and it's awesome.
So when it comes with Overcooked, I guess the manicness comes because you've got the orders constantly coming, and so you can't necessarily plan ahead.
Yes.
So the stress removing factor is the fact that once you've done the level once, you go, okay, we know what we need to do, let's do it. There's no like randomization or anything. It's just like, this is the level that's set.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was going to happen, because what you have to do right at the start, you have no idea what you need to do. In some levels, you don't even have the paint or the carpets or whatever you need to do. They will be delivered by the delivery guy. But as soon as you grab the blueprints, you see what you need to do, and that's always the same. So I thought, as you, James, I thought it was going to random every time. There would be a different room, because a lot of the apartments have 4 or 5 rooms in them. So I thought maybe they would just kind of random around there. But there's no randomization. It's always the same thing, which was quite nice, because if I messed up, then we go, right, okay, we need to do this, and I'm like, okay, well, once you've done that room, once you've plastered that room, I need you to then come and help me, or I need you to help me lay, because when you're laying carpet, you have to put down adhesive first, so you have to mix the adhesive and then you have to put the adhesive, but that takes time to dry, so it blocks off areas. So there was some like, don't do the adhesive yet, I just need to kind of run through, and there was all that sort of, and it was just really good fun. So we played, I think, about 8 levels together, and then Nicola kind of did the Overcooked thing and went, I'll take it from here, you know. And so it was just like,
it's alright, just leave your controller, it's fine.
Yeah. So she ended up doing it on solo, and solo was not like Overcooked where you're switching between 2 chefs. This was just you. But towards the end, she's now got 3 stars on all levels, and there was a nice hefty 200-point achievement for doing that as well, for getting 3 stars on all levels. But it got a little bit trickier towards the end, especially right at the top. There was a pesky ghost that kept taking your stuff from outside and bringing it in. So when you've got 10 seconds left and you've got one item which you take out, and then a ghost brings another item in, it was really kind of, she played that a couple of times, but it was really good fun. So what I played, which was about 8 levels, about 16 rooms, because there's about 2 levels on each room. I really enjoyed it. It was really good. It was really good fun.
Nice. It sounds like we'll have to pick this up, because I think I was worried about it was just going to be the stress of Overcooked just in a different coat. But yes. It sounds like there's a bit more planning. I can get my head around it and go from the off rather than trying to just listen to instructions being shouted as we go.
Yes, one of my favourite things, one level I did play, was that it didn't give you a blueprint. So
just freeform.
It was just, you've got to do, or did it tell you, no, it didn't give you a blueprint, but then you had things were delivered. So you had wallpaper was delivered, you had paint was delivered, so you had to, but you got a percentage bar. So you knew that when you started painting, the percentage bar came down. So you're like, right, I've got the right colour and the right paint. Or if you didn't do it, you then had to like chip it off the wall and then kind of do it again. Oof. It was just, there were some real fun levels in there. It's a really good game, and that's kind of tools up. The additional characters you unlock, some of them are a bit weird looking. There was a fish, but he's in overalls, so he's just looking up all the time, and it really kind of freaked me out a little bit. So it was just quite bizarre. But it was really good. And then the last game that I've been playing, because I kind of buggered it really a little bit, because I didn't have that single player game to play over Christmas. And so with Star Wars, Call of Duty, all those games, I'd finished all those games, so I didn't really have that one game that I wanted to play. I tried to play a game that we'll talk about a bit later, but I kept kind of bouncing in and out, and I wasn't sure. So I was just sat there one day, just going through Game Pass, looking at Game Pass, playing a lot of different things, jumping into Forza, playing this, playing that. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it one more try. I'm going to give Yooka Laylee a try. I'm just going to give one more time. I've tried this a couple of times.
So this is the original Yooka Laylee and not the Hidden Lair, the new one?
No. This was the original 3D platform, hashtag not my banjo, Yooka Laylee. You know, this is the bird and the bat, the 3D world. this, and so they've changed. They have added they've updated the camera angle. So there's now a classic and a manual. So I kind of put it into classic mode, which really helped, because one of my biggest gripes was the camera angle all the time, and that I felt I had to constantly adjust that. That's gone now. There's a classic mode. So one of the things I was doing was I was trying to figure out a game for Nicola and I to play when we're on the plane and when we're going on holiday. And Nicola has Yooka Laylee on the Switch. I think it was my backers code, because I backed this on Kickstarter, but I also have it on Xbox. And so I thought, I'll give it one more go, and it clicked in a big way, to the point I was just listening to the soundtrack. It's Grant Kirkhope's soundtrack all the way through. This thing just sounds glorious, and I was really enjoying it. So I kind of played through the first level, expanded the first level, because what you do is, as you start playing, you're finding these pages, and then when you get so many, you can either move on to another level, or you can expand that level, which makes it bigger. There's more things and more things to unlock. So I was doing that, and I was really enjoying the first level. I went to the second level, which was a snow level, and started kind of playing through that, and it's just finally clicked. And so what we're doing is, I'm going to put it on my Switch as well. I'm going to start from the start again, and we're going to play together, kind of like on the plane, like together but separately, on the plane and things like that, because I really think this is it's really good. I've really enjoyed it. I think it's on Game Pass as well, so I think it's available on Game Pass, but it's worthwhile just kind of picking up. And it's like I say, the first thing you need to do is put the camera in classic mode, and it just makes for a much better experience.
It's amazing how that could just change your experience, though. Just like one tweak in how you literally view the game, and away we go.
Yes, it really was. It was because I started off in the normal mode and the automatic mode and the manual mode, and it was just like, I'm constantly pulling it back, swinging it round, and it was hurting. It was really kind of, because I found I was jolting my neck almost, trying to I was being the camera angle, and then when I just stuck it in that, it was really good, and I was really enjoying it. It's one of those games where you do have to go to another world just to kind of grab more or unlock more moves, because you'll get to a certain puzzle in a world, and then you'll think, I can't do this, I need to be able to double jump or fly or glide or whatever, and it's not something that the character who has all the moves, Trouser the snake, so you have to go to another world, and then that unlocks maybe 3 more moves that you can then buy, and so you are just kind of going to another world and unlocking it, and I'm really enjoying it. It looks absolutely fantastic as well on both the Switch and also on the Xbox as well. But it's I'm glad that it's finally clicked before it was deleted for good.
Before you rage quit for the final time.
Exactly, before Yooka Laylee was officially dead to me. But anyway, so that's what I've been playing. I don't think, like I say, I jumped around playing a bit of Demon's Tilt and playing some other things and never getting anywhere close to Jamie.
How far did Nicola get on the high score, by the way?
She got 470 million.
Okay, it means I don't have to go and reinstall it right now. So
yeah. So you're still top. So you're currently top with 638 million. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the recorded one. Yeah.
Yeah. So 638 million for you, 470, and then Manny is up there in 149.
Excellent.
So yes,
it's actually quite a relief I don't have to go and play it again.
Yeah, I think at one point she did look at me and go, "Could you take this off the Xbox? I just don't want to play it anymore." But it was good fun. Right, so that's what we've been playing. It's time to talk about even more games, which is good actually, because I think apart from maybe a Batman game coming out at any moment with Warner Brothers Montreal, there's not much news. So it's time to get into our game of the year.
You were very restrained with that.
I know. Well, I've got to be restrained, because for the last 18 months they've been trolling. WB Montreal have been trolling on that Twitter. They flashed up images on Batman Day. They've been doing stuff, and then tonight they've been doing something like Capture the Night. So I'm just tempering my expectation, because I can't keep getting excited, James.
Oh, I see. It's like half a logo. Oh, okay.
Yes. The logo keeps popping in. You have to go to like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then there's different parts of the logo.
It's interesting. I like the way they capture the night and then capture the night. Yes.
Don't worry, I have. Oh, that's just such a bad pun. I don't. I have. What's that? I have WB Montreal's Twitter feed to me down at the just down on the corner of my eye. So if anything happens, I will get very excited.
Stay tuned for breaking.
Oh my god!
Stay tuned for breaking Chesson. Right, it's time for Game of the Year. But before we start Game of the Year, don't forget you can rate, review, and subscribe to this very podcast for free on iTunes and Spotify. So what we do in a normal kind of Lost Spark Game of the Year, we always talk about those games, the top three that we've enjoyed the most in 2019 or in that year. But we always like to kick off with a bit of fun, which is the biggest disappointment, biggest high point. I'm getting there, and also the 2020 predictions. Always a bit of fun. So we'll do a round robin, and we'll start with James. Biggest, I kind of feel bad starting with disappointment, but biggest disappointment of 2019.
Biggest
James
disappointment
Thomas.
for
Not
me.
That you weren't the biggest disappointment.
That was it. I am your biggest disappointment. Thank you. Okay. So my biggest gaming disappointment of 2019 was actually Division 2.
Yes.
I had a soft spot for The Division because when it first came out, I was really excited to play it. I'd got quite through a few of the Ubisoft games, and we were moving house at the time, and so I lost internet, and so it almost added to the allure that this game was out there that I couldn't play that I wanted to with you folks. And I remember just like taking my Xbox to work to get it installed, and then tethering it to my phone. So we tried to play it through 5G a couple of times, didn't we? And it mostly worked until I'd turn it on and find another 5 gig update, which we just obviously couldn't do. And so I had high expectations for Division 2. And about an hour and a half in, I just realised I hated it. Like there was just like functionally it was fine. Like there was nothing actually wrong with the game, but it was just nothing that I wanted.
Yes.
It was just like the enemies seemed bullet spongy, and so I just couldn't see me wanting to play it alone. It just didn't seem to have the larger spaces that I think I associate with the first one. But it could be just my mind painting maps that weren't there. But it just seemed too confined and too prescribed and didn't have the same draw that maybe the novelty of the first one had. So I literally probably spent 2 hours on that, and I was playing with Matt and Manny at the time, and I don't think I even saw the evening out. It's like, guys, I just don't want to play. And it was like the biggest, because like the multiplayer usually makes something elevate and makes me want to play more, but I think we must have just been up in a tough spot, and I didn't have my heart in it, and I was just dragging them down. It's like, guys, I'm sorry. I might come back to this, and I never did.
I remember jumping into your game because I think with Steve, Stuart, and I were playing we were all kind of playing, but we had to break into two games because of the. And I remember jumping into your game because I think we were stuck, or I wanted to know something, and it was just
it what colour my beanie was?
Yeah, it was just like, "Hi guys, how you doing?" You're like, "Hi." It's just like, but yeah, I mean, I think I talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's one of those games where we played for like 1 or 2 nights, and we've just never gone back to it. We've never been able to recreate that. I mean, we spent hours, nights, days, playing the original. It was so much fun. But the second one, as you say, it just never captured that moment, did it?
No, I think I've had a few sequels to that this year. I think Hitman, as much as I love the original, when I tried to go back and do the second one, rinse that first level, second one just sort of bounced off. I think Division 2 is just the absolute focus of like, I don't want AAA polish type things like this anymore. I want to try to do something different for a bit, and it was wrong place, wrong time, wrong game.
Yes. Steve, what got your goat in 2019?
I think it'd have to be Crackdown 3. In terms of the length of time we waited for it, the hype that surrounded it, and the way that Microsoft bigged it up, and then it was coming out in 2 parts, and there was separate, and all the controversy around the destruction, not in certain modes, and rah-de-rah, and by then, obviously, it was coming out in Game Pass, great, fantastic, everyone's going to get to play it, and then it's like, is it even really worth it? And it's kind of, I played it, finished it, and then just kind of started grinding a little bit through it in terms of like the orbs and things, that appeal was still there in terms of chasing the orbs and just running around and causing a bit of chaos, but beyond that, it just felt empty. It was kind of like the world was there, but there was no real drive to play it or real hook to follow the story, or there was nothing really there. And for how long it had been in development for, and how long it had had its delays for, it should have been a lot more than it actually was. And yeah, it was just kind of, I felt like I had to play it and finish it just to say that I did it, rather than because I wanted to do it. And it looked, it looked great. The actual appearance of it, is great. That sort of Crackdown 3 look and feel that it's got was still there, and that was good and all, but it kind of felt like you got too powerful too quick as well. It very quickly became unbalanced, in terms of once you'd powered up and leveled up a bit and then you got more powerful guns, you could just literally just walk through an area and not actually worry about having to take cover or run away. It was literally, you could just take so many hits and it wouldn't really touch you anymore, and then you just, that was it, and then it just kind of ended, that was it. It just kind of just came to an end, It's like, it is like, it didn't feel like it was properly ended, and then it's just like, oh, yep, done with that now. So yeah, kind of a bit like James, really. I think it was just okay with with his Star Wars rating. It was okay at best, I think, and then that was it. It was like, yeah, it's free, so play it, but that's the only reason to play it, because it's literally free.
It did seem to be a really good fit for Game Pass, in that sense. Like I almost damning with faint praise, but it was a game I actually liked. Is probably the best. It was a nice game. I think it was quite. It wasn't memorable, but I had just that. I remember this. I'm going to bounce through the city, and it was. I'm happy I didn't pay for it, in the sense that, it was on Game Pass and I've trialed it. In the same, I guess you were talking about Yooka Laylee or other things that we found out, was it Monster in the Hole? I can't remember. What's the pinball thing that we played a while back? I can't remember. There's just random games that you find on Game Pass going I enjoy
Yoku's
this.
Yoku's Island?
Oh no, I'll play it later. But yeah, it just seemed to fit that. I'm going to give this a dabble. It's fine. Happy I didn't pay full price for it.
Yes,
it kind of scratched. Yeah. You kind of scratched the itch a little bit, and then that was it, really. But but that's that kind of Nah.
Creature in the Well. That's it. Sorry,
there
Creature
you go.
In the Well.
That's the one. It's quite interesting because that almost made my biggest disappointment list, because the online code on day one, or that kind of opening weekend, was terrible. We couldn't join up. It's funny because Nicola and I, our Xboxes are next to each other, and we not that matters, but we couldn't kind of get online. We could, and that was for a couple of weeks. We left it alone. We went back we played some Gears, and then I think maybe we kind of went back to it, and it just constantly was, kind of causing some problems. I think we ended up finishing the game on our own, finishing solo, but like I say, it was, you were having fun and just kind of jumping around and collecting orbs. That sound never gets old, but there was just something about it that just kind of, it just needed, the game needed to end. It just, I don't, have either of you guys ever jumped into the multiplayer? Have you ever tried any of the multiplayer or anything?
No. I think I played one game to find out what it was, and it just felt perfunctory.
Yes,
it's there almost because they felt like they had to put it there, I think so. Yeah, so if that didn't make your list, what is your most disappointing then, Chesson, before we move on to shinier, happier things?
Biggest disappointment for me was my best score in Demon's Tilt. Because I thought I was good at pinball, and I thought I was good at video pinball as well. But my best score in Demon's Tilt for me was the biggest disappointment. I am my biggest disappointment, because I think I ended up coming in at just 36 million, and I did have a 42 million game that never got registered for some reason. I always check after an update just to see if it's been registered, but I could not beat 36 million. No matter how much I tried, no matter how much I sat down or sat on the floor and got close to the little TV, I could not beat 36 million. So my biggest disappointment was my Demon's Tilt score.
I feel like we need to come over and give you a hug.
I really need one.
My biggest disappointment this year was myself.
Was my gaming dexterity.
Steve, you should have been there at EGX. There was an absolutely beautiful moment before. There was me, Manny, and Chesson and Stu all just sat around the table, just having a drink before we went into the hall itself. And I think we were talking about Overcooked again, and I think we were talking about how Nicola was just bossing it with 4 stars. And Manny just turned to Antony and just went, "Have you ever considered you're just not good at games?" And the look on Antony's face, and so he just, I'm good, like this written like in a tiny voice was like, "I'm good at games.
I'm good at games.
I'm good at games."
And
It's just like,
do
it
you
looked
know
like
what?
someone had kicked a puppy.
It really, and they might. Do you know what? And every time I lose on a game now, all I can hear is Manny's voice in my head going, "Maybe you're just not good at games."
Like in a haunting voice in the background or something.
I think I walked around my house for 2 days after that, going, "I am good at games. I am.
I'm good at games, Antonio Nicola."
Yes,
Aren't
you
I?
are. Yes,
Aren't I?
you
Look,
are.
I just got
Yes.
top score.
Yeah.
Yes, you just
Can I
ruffles
play
my
with
head.
with you? No.
No. Yeah. But literally, I did. Every now and then, I just hear Manny's voice going, "You're not that good again." But because the thing with Demon's Hill, I think I kind of jumped in first, maybe, and then I kind of set a lovely high score, which was like 36 million, and I was like, "Yes, I'm happy with this." The board went crazy, and then James, Manny, Nicola, Matt, Stuart, all of the guys, I just kept kind of just moving down, and I just could not beat that 36 million. That 42, I was like, "It's fine. I've got 42. I can do this, I can get better." And I'm seeing Nicola get these million things, and I'm just, no. So my biggest disappointment was my score in Demon's Till. Yes.
If you want to feel better, so we went down to the actual pinball arcade just just after Christmas, and Ali was going like, "Okay, show me this Jurassic Park table that you've been talking so much about. I just want to see it. I want to hear the voice acting." With her first 50p.
Yeah.
She doubled my previous high score.
Oh my lord.
And I think she was half proud and was like going, "Are you all right, James?" Like, "Yes. I've only put countless dozens of pounds into this to practice," and you just like, anyway, it was that kind of like, it's the way my mum occasionally played board games, like, "Am I doing well? Is this what you're supposed to do?" And you're like, "You're destroying me. You're destroying my score. You're destroying my soul. Stop it."
Welcome to my world every day. Superb. And then, apart from crushing my soul, what's been your highest point, James? Your the biggest high point of 2019?
To be honest, it was outside of the console world, but it was being made a special effects ambassador, and I know that's a relatively thing, but we've had a lot of connections through work and through some of my hobbies as well with special effects, through Rare for football, through crochet, and just so much of what they have done and what their aims are has really touched me over the last few years. So to actually be given that accolade and lovely shiny pin badge, just really touched me before Christmas. So it's a really nice Christmas present, and sort of ended the year on a gaming high for me.
That's just absolutely superb. Try and beat that, Carter.
Yeah, we're talking about biggest disappointments. Can I put myself back on that list?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the kind of high point is like, I feel like Microsoft and Game Pass kind of came into its own this year, and I think we've kind of sung its praises enough over the course of this last year with the pods that we've been on. But I think that's kind of finally found its feet with Game Pass Ultimate, Game Pass, that sort of thing, with tying it in with Games of Gold, your Xbox Live Gold and Game Pass and what have you. I think that's kind of got to where it should have been from the start, and obviously we've kind of seen now not that this is my sort of prediction for 2020, but this is kind of the start of what Microsoft are going to be doing this year into the next console cycle. And I think that's kind of the high point there, is that we're kind of seeing where the future lies. We've kind of got an early indicator of what to expect. So it's kind of, we know where we're heading as a collective. And just, sort of having that choice of games, that sheer quantity and quality of games, but also having games that are accessible to everybody out of the box. It's just making gaming that much easier for people to get into, rather than having to buy a console, then having to buy 5 or 10 games that are 50 quid a pop. You can say, well, here's at least a month or 2 months trial to get you going, and it's just making everything more accessible for everybody to kind of get into. And Microsoft had a very wobbly start to this generation, but they've kind of got to where they need to be now to kind of set the foundations for the next Xbox, whatever it may be called. But and that kind of, to me, is kind of, I'm happy that it's kind of come full circle now. Because after Sony dominated for so long, it's nice that everyone's kind of now on a level pegging to kind of give everybody an opportunity to experience that sheer quantity and quality of games without having to kind of pay out of the nose for it.
Absolutely. I mean, for like £3 for over Christmas, or for 3 months, you can play Untitled Goose Game, Outer Wilds, Outer Worlds, Gears of War, Halo, Forza, Sea of Thieves. All of these games, they are just there. So if you've got as you said, if you've got an Xbox day one, Games Pass is just all you need. And there's just nothing else. And for £1 that month, there is just, you just sit there, you download Sea of Thieves, you download Forza, you download Outer Wilds, you're getting a multiplayer game, you're getting a racing player, you're getting a quality indie title. You're getting this mixture of all of what gaming is. And I think, and also, not only that, but there's also party games as well. They've got Jackbox Party back in there. So kind of come Christmas, all of those games were just kind of easily to download and be ready to play with your family. I just think Phil and Microsoft have just got Game Pass just so right. And if that's what we get from a platform being behind in the race, then it's fantastic. I think we've said time and time again, I think it's we win. If there's this console war, it's fantastic for the consumer, because it just means that each other platform has to continue to innovate, and no one can be lazy or rest on their laurels. And I just think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it took me a while to actually get used to Game Pass as well, in the sense that the offerings for games for gold were hit and miss. I think, as it's the same with PlayStation Plus. Like some months you got hot months, some months it's like meh. And I think I almost took the Game Pass for granted. A lot of the larger Microsoft things I'd have played anyway, or the larger AAA stuff that would have appeared on Game Pass by standard I'd have played anyway. So I never went digging. And I think it must have been just like I had a week off, or there was a fallow period, maybe around the Division 2 period, where I want to have a look at that what's behind that. And you just start scratching the surface and go, yeah, there's gold there. There's things like Hollow Knight there, as you say, Jackbox. There's Ori and the Blind Forest, which would have been my game of the year if it hadn't been just released 5 years ago. There's just so much good stuff there that you just need a nudge towards. And the more I've dug in, the more I've appreciated what's actually there. Because I thought there's the lower half of it would just be filler, just literally shovelware like you found on the Wii back in the day. But there is a quality, I think, that runs quite deep. And so I'm happy if they keep going, we keep it to 100 games. That's still a lot, but it also means that they don't feel the need to shovel and just shovel and shovel. Whereas you look at Steam and Apple Store and Android Store now, there are so many games being released on such a high frequency base, and even on the Xbox Store, actually, I had looked around, there's so much stuff that you just don't know what there is. So to have this gatekeeping of quality, I think is literally worth its weight in gold at some points, because it says there is a bar. No matter what you pick here, there is a bar. You should appreciate something if you like that genre.
Absolutely. Like I say, over Christmas when I was looking for a game, so I didn't have something to play, you just go in there and there you are, kind of paralysed by choice, because even over Christmas we got Witcher, we got Grand Theft Auto. There's some big titles. Today we got Frostpunk, which is a game that I have been waiting to play. That's a game that was on Steam and that's now coming to Xbox, but it's day and date. Untitled Goose Game came to Xbox, and that was quote unquote free. It was straight into Game Pass, where it was on Switch and also PS4, and you're paying for it, but it's coming. But more people are going to play that. More people are going to experience the Goose, because it's just there and it looks silly, so you can just jump in and kind of see what that's like. And I just love that, because you've got nothing to lose apart from your time. So I just think that's a good one, Steve. That's a really cool high point.
I feel like I've kind of lived up to expectation after Thomas's sort of shining achievement there.
Yes,
an upstanding member of the community that he is.
Yeah, I'm not going to get anywhere close. I mean, I've actually got 2 high points, actually, because I'm being a bit greedy. My first high point was XO19. So XO19, I just really enjoyed being at XO19. There was something about
your physical trip to XO19.
Yes, the trip to XO19. There was Wee Man Manny, Stuart, myself. We went along to XO19, and just being there and being surrounded by the event. We didn't know what to expect. We turned up. You got given a backpack. You got given vouchers so there was beer. And it just felt like you were being looked looked after it. It felt like a celebration by Microsoft for Xbox gaming for everyone, and I just really loved it. The fact that you're just there, people that you know from the industry that you've seen are just walking around, Stig Larsson, your boss Craig, they're all just there, just wandering around and just meeting the fans and just being there. Phil Spencer was doing a really good kind of meet and greet section. It just meant that all those people that you wanted to thank, all those people that you really kind of wanted to go, thanks for all this gaming, it's just absolutely fantastic. So just being there, getting to play Flight Simulator, just being on the show and just seeing it at Stuart's elbow, all of those things were just it was just a really fun event, and it was just a really kind of nice just to kind of experience that show, and I just really enjoyed it, and I thought that was a real high point for me this year.
I think they do so much as well to bring the community together, because they've had them in, was it Rio last year, and I think
Yes.
Paris a couple of years back. So to actually see them dotting around the globe as well, I think they might have had a Cologne Fan Fest when I was out for Gamescom as well. So I'm always impressed that the execs actually get down on the floor as well at that point, and just see them mixing with folks as well. So it's definitely come and meet and greet your favourites.
Absolutely, it was a really nice event. Like I say, it was. You didn't want to leave. We got to play xCloud. We got, there was just such a great event, and it was really there was some thought, and it was just really laid out, and I just really loved it. So XO19 was one of my high points. The other one was firing up the Oculus Quest and having wireless VRing. I couldn't, I was blown away when I first put VR on when I played my PSVR, but having wireless VR and playing Beat Saber untethered, no wire to trip over or get caught up in, and just being able to play Beat Saber, for me, that was just such a high point. I just really enjoyed that moment, and that was a real high point for me.
Nice. So is it, because have you still got your PSVR as well?
I do, yes.
So is this going to kick the PSVR out?
I haven't. I've got some games. Iron Man VR is coming. Iron Man VR is coming in a couple of weeks' time, but I haven't played my PSVR, I think, since I played maybe Starfleet Bridge Crew. So I think it has, just because for me it's such a pain to do. I've got to move my PS4, I've got to take the HDMI lead out because I've got to sort all of that out. I can't just leave the PSVR box there because HDR doesn't pass through. So there's a whole problem. So it's a rigmarole to kind of get PSVR set up, and it's going to take me about 20 minutes. So, but with Oculus, I just grab it out of the cupboard, stick it on, and I'm Beat Sabering. So I've played 3 or 4 games of Beat Saber before even starting the PSVR. I should do it in time, how long it takes and how much faffing around it takes just to kind of do it. So unless they fix this with the PS5, I can kind of, hopefully there will be fixed with the PS5, hopefully. But yeah, so Oculus Quest is definitely my go-to VR headset.
Sweet. Yeah, I think I'm going to wait for the next generation before even thinking of jumping in again, see if they do their 4K pass-through as standard, but yes.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my god, that rages me. And so then the last one, always a bit of a fun one, is our 2020 predictions. So, James, 2020 prediction.
I feel like I always have to I want to choose the games that slip, because that's always fun. I think it's going to be Cyberpunk this year. I think Cyberpunk's going to be the game that slips, possibly. Maybe I'm going to go as far as it's going to be out this year, but I think it's going to be slipping back to the September window. I hope to anything Animal Crossing just keeps firm.
Yes.
But I think Cyberpunk is going to slip. But an extension to what Steve was saying earlier, I think that PlayStation are going to put renewed focus on their streaming service, because although they've got one, PlayStation Now, it's not really given the front and centre attention that Xbox is giving to Game Pass. So I think in the coming months, on the lead up to the console launches and everything else they're doing, and the announces, and that shiny new logo they got, I think it's going to be given a bit of maybe a rebranding or a refresh, just something to put it back out there to say, hey, we've got this service too.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely spot on. I mean, my 2020 prediction, one of mine, I've got two. One of mine is that Sony are returning to E3. So I think you're absolutely right. I think they're going to be front and center. Here's our new here's our new PS Now. It's all kind of it's very much following that Game Pass model. But I think they're going to be at E3 and they're going to be big. I think they're going to come big to E3. I don't think they're going to do all of their announcements outside of E3. I think they're going to be back at E3 with lots of booths, lots of hands-on, really trying to kind of get the public kind of playing the PS5.
They've kind of got to, though, I think, haven't they, really? You know, in terms of, because obviously Microsoft are gearing up as much as they are. I think they've got to see that now as the kind of the benchmark and the challenge, because like James says, they've got the streaming service that they've kind of had for a while now, but obviously Microsoft's focus is now on their, you know, xCloud and everything, and they're kind of putting a lot of focus and a lot of attention into that to making this an all-encompassing kind of all-in-one-place sort of service. And if you look at, like James said, if you look at what they're doing to that now, their attention is not really on it. So they've kind of got to see that as the kind of the early stages of, well, we've kind of got to up the ante, and like you say, they've got to kind of make a big sort of announcement or a big splash, haven't they, to kind of make Microsoft worried and get people's attention towards the PS5 as opposed to the Series X.
Yes, absolutely, because you look at it, you know, Series X, as you were saying earlier, Steve, you get your Series X home, you have Halos, you've got Halo Infinite, all these games that are just going to be free on Game Pass. You know, they I think by doing this, Microsoft have really kind of put that subscription model on its head. So PlayStation have to. You know, I don't think they can say, you know, you buy this game and then you've got to buy our 3 exclusives, and that's you know, £150. It's going to be, or there's a subscription. So I think that's, yes, good stuff. What about you, Steve? What's your 2020 prediction?
So I think there's going to be a lot of sort of big announcements, given obviously we're getting new consoles very imminently. I think there's going to be a lot of sort of announcements in and around D3 and outside of it in terms of the big sort of franchises, developers, you know, the big sort of titles that we're expecting as to kickstart the next generation. But I think we've kind of seen rumours about this for a while, but I think Nintendo kind of, obviously they just brought the Switch Lite out, but I think they're going to finally kind of bring like a Switch Pro sort of thing out. So obviously I know we've seen a lot of sort of rumour mill sort of spinning about this, but I know they've kind of not re-released, but they've already kind of upgraded the Switch once, haven't they, with an improved battery, etc. But I think we're kind of going to see them release a new one in terms of, as much as they can, improved graphics, you know, improved memory, that sort of thing. And I think we might actually see a sort of a Switch Pro as well as a Switch Lite this year. Because obviously we know that they're not going to get in the foot race with Nintendo and Microsoft, but obviously we know as much as anybody that they don't need to. But in a year where there's other consoles, or even if it doesn't come out this year, or if they kind of beat Microsoft and Sony to the post sort of thing, to release it before then, I think we'll at least see something from Nintendo, sort of something new hardware, kind of upgrading the software rather than doing a sort of an entry level, much of them with the Switch Lite.
Because I think someone mentioned it on a podcast I was listening to this week, it may have been Giant Bomb, where they were saying that if you think about it, all of those people that bought Switches on the day of release, you know, it's been a while since you got your day one Switch, so maybe that refresh could come. I think that's a really good call. I think, you know, it's hard to tell, isn't it, with Nintendo? They don't normally care. But if you've got these two consoles that are out there going, we do 8K and we do this and we do this and all these teraflops and all of that, do they want to be part of that, or do they just not care because they have that amazing first-party library that just seems to... I mean, look at Breath of the Wild, look at Luigi's Mansion, they're gorgeous.
Yeah, I think it's down to style at that point in time, because I don't think they do care about the graphics and the 8K and the 4K or things like that, because they release the Switch at such a disparity to the current generation consoles. Like, it's an impressive feat they managed to get The Witcher on Switch.
Yes.
But it doesn't look amazing, and so I think the only reason they want to upgrade it is to try and make these ports easier going into the future. But
right.
It seems to be like they shouldn't care. They should just be able to allow it to do their own thing, because they've been doing all right so far. Because there's been, probably only a handful of things that have actually come over from Xbox One and PlayStation 4 that have actually really mattered, like the AAA stuff. You look at things like, I guess, the medium tier, where you look at things like where Rocket League probably just lives, and there's a quality bar there, but it doesn't mean it has to be running your GPU so hot your Switch melts in your hands. It's like it doesn't need to be the shiniest, greatest. It just has to have the games. And I think the only reason they will do a refresh is to try and get a marketing beat nearer the time. But is that just folly? Is that just folly? Are they going to try and do that and then just get swept away in the E3 and the hype train leading towards November, where two behemoths consoles release? It's then you get that beat, but then are you just left with a lot of inventory that isn't really shifting? I can see it a lot of ways, but I don't know if it'd be good for them to do another console.
Yes, but you know how much everybody loves Nintendo and loves Nintendo franchise. Suddenly you have this Switch Pro that just thinking about, when you think about Switch Pro, you think, if you kind of let your imagination and excitement run away, seeing all of those games get a bit of a bump, getting a bit of a quality bump in textures and quality and things like that would be fantastic. But then you start thinking about having a handheld, let's say 4K, let's go crazy and go, let's, even a 1080, even a 1080p
look at that,
would
look
be
at
nice.
That disapproving shake of the head from Thomas. Look at that.
But, why do you need 4K in your hand? Your eyes will not register it.
Okay, let's go 1080p. Let's go 1080p. But you imagine seeing all those games just getting that kind of 1080p, 60 frames, suddenly get that quality bump. We've seen that with Xbox. We've seen those games that we've, look at me with Viva Pinata. Suddenly you fire at Viva Pinata and it's just 4K and it's just gorgeous. It's just, imagine suddenly you want to play those games again. And similar to what happened when the Switch came out, I started playing Breath of the Wild. I left Horizon Zero Dawn alone. I stopped playing Horizon Zero Dawn because Breath of the Wild was all I wanted to play. If Nintendo kind of bring out something October, that could actually kind of stop people from wanting two of the consoles or wanting one of those consoles. I like you say, I think it's a marketing beat, but it could be a clever move. But I just don't think Nintendo are. I don't think they're that competitive. Like I say, I think they like to dance. They're that kooky guy who just in the corner dancing to his own beat. They are the Luna Lovegood of the Harry Potter world. I think that's what you've got from them. But I would love to see a more powerful Switch. There was something at CES this week, which was the Alienware UFO, which was a kind of a Windows 10 PC and a very Switch-like thing, and that just that got me excited because I just thought, if that was a Switch or if that was my xCloud machine, that was quite lovely. But yes, and I think so. My other 2020 was just a very kind of an obvious one, but I just kind of think that 2020 is going to be, as long as James's prediction with Cyberpunk doesn't come true, I just kind of feel that 2020 is going to be one of the best years of gaming. When we look back and I think we had it in 2017 when like Breath of the Wild, and we just had these massive titles all the year through. I kind of feel that 2020 is going to be one of those years that it's a tentpole year. I kind of not only just these new consoles coming out, but the games that are coming out. When you think about Breath of the Wild 2, Breath of the Wild 2, Animal Crossing, Cyberpunk, all of these games that are coming out, Last of Us 2, all of these games that are coming out, I just kind of feel that 2020, I'm so excited for 2020. I just think it's going to be amazing. A new Batman game, come on, WB Montreal. It's just going to be, and all of the stuff we don't know about, all of the stuff we don't even know is coming. I just kind of feel that 2020 is just going to be a really exciting year for games and a really bad year for our bank balances.
I've already got the penny jar saving up for November, that's for sure.
Exactly. So that is my prediction. So let's jump into kind of what we feel that kind of were our top 3 game of the year, or games of the year. I'll start with my number 3. My number 3 was back in October, a game come out of the blue. I'd seen a sizzle reel. I think it made a PlayStation sizzle reel, and it completely blew me away into the fact that I could not stop playing this game, and that was Concrete Genie. And Concrete Genie, which was a story of a boy who was bullied in this kind of rundown seaside town. He was bullied by a group of bullies, and then his kind of magical pages just kind of was strewn all across this town, and he could draw these genies on the wall, and they would help unlock puzzles. And there was something very magical, something very emotional about Concrete Genie, and it just absolutely hooked me. So I kind of feel that Concrete Genie did so much. The story was great. It didn't outstay its welcome. Looking at you, Days Gone. It didn't outstay its welcome. But you just played it, and every single genie that you got to create were very unique and individual to you, and it just was a wonderful video game, and I just absolutely enjoyed it. Have either of you guys played it?
No, I haven't. No, I think we discussed it when we were on before, when we podded beforehand, and I think we touched upon it, but I think I touched upon it earlier, but I haven't really used my PlayStation for gaming recently, so it's kind of something that I probably will pick up at some point as I kind of reinstate the PlayStation as a gaming machine after God of War. So yeah, but after you kind of, had your glowing review over it, it's definitely something that I'd look to give a whirl at some point.
It's one that I watched a couple of quick looks at after your recommendation again, and it did just look lovely. Just the way the lights are scattered around, and it's like this dark, almost like fishing village, and then you start just bringing colour and hope, life, however you want to put it to it. That was lovely in itself, but there was that elegant way that it looked like you get to paint the walls. You get to choose how the world does come to life and how it's all painted. And just the silliness of being able to stick together a genie at the start, almost like one of those like flick books you get when you're younger, like I'll choose the legs from this one and the head from this one and the body from that. There was something really quite quaint about it, especially as it would then just dance and spring to life afterwards.
Absolutely. I mean, the end game of that game, the fact that you could then bring multiple genies together, and at some point, if you connected the worlds, genies could come from the world. So you'd end up at one point having like 4 genies behind you. So you'd look around, and there would just be 4 genies kind of waiting to be told what to do. Just causing mischief. It's like, it's just like, hello, I'm here. But and also when you start off, one of the first places you have to go to is this lighthouse, and then when you're deep into the game and in the town, if you looked at the lighthouse, you could see the things that you painted in order to unlock that lighthouse puzzle. So the power of the PlayStation and power of this generation enabled that it stayed there. It didn't go away. It wasn't when you came back it rendered. You could actually see that skyline, those trees that you painted on the wall. And there was something about it. I just could not stop playing it. And I just felt it was a kind of really kind of like magical and just some, like you say, James, it was just really lovely. So that's my number 3, which is Concrete Genie. Steve, what one kind of came in and your kind of your top 3? What was your number 3?
So my number 3 was my first of my trio of trilogies of 3s, however you want to label them, was Kingdom Hearts 3, which I think, if we delve into the archives of the podcasts, I think there'll be an episode somewhere where I've been discussing Kingdom Hearts beforehand and how much I actually enjoy Kingdom Hearts and whatnot. So for me, having waited for so long for this third title and the kind of the ending of the trilogy to finally come out was worth the wait, because I played this when they first came out on PS2, which I'm sorry to make you guys feel old, but for me I must have been about 11 when these first came out, on the PS2, and that for me was just kind of like my sort of golden generation of gaming that kind of really sparked my interest in gaming, in terms of playing these games. And at the time, it was kind of that crossover between Final Fantasy and Disney and just all the madness in between that it kind of brings to the table. It's just how on paper it shouldn't work. If you think about it and take all its pieces apart and put it down as a formula or a mathematical equation, it shouldn't work. If you take these two franchises and worlds and what have you and put them together, it doesn't make any sense. But when you put it together, it just does work. It all falls into place, and the two worlds and everything just blends into one wonderful world of crazy Final Fantasy Disney madness, and it's just fantastic. And to see that game running on the X in full 4K HDR, Raddy Ryan brought to life. It's fantastic, and I just love that world. And I could just get lost in that world forever, and just even if you played it for the Toy Story world in that game is worth its weight in gold on its own. And I just love it, and it's just incredible. And I could blabber on about Kingdom Hearts for a time and time again, forevermore. But I'm not a kind of a geek for all the lore. I kind of stick to the main games, as in 1, 2, 3, not all the spin-offs that came out on the DS, the Game Boy Advance and mobile and all that nonsense. But yeah, that for me was just fantastic, and that was going all the way back to March last year, I think that was. So that was pretty early on. But yeah, I just loved every element of that game.
So do you think they're ever going to wrap up the trilogy in terms of a storyline? Is this like the end of the trilogy of trilogies, or the start of a next dark chapter, or is this the kind of thing that will just keep on rolling because there are so many more Disney films and Final Fantasies to pull characters from?
I think they could. I think it's just one of them that even when they wind it up, it can just, like you say, it can just keep going, and even if it's not the arc that is kind of here now, it can easily go off into another kind of, because there's all sort of subplots and subworlds, and they're all linked into each other, and this ties into that, and there's the Heartless and Organisation 13, etc., etc. I think it is just something that, if it's done right, it could go on beyond that, but if it's done wrong, then it's much like, because when they did the spin-offs that were on, like, say, the Game Boy, the mobile, that sort of thing, they were just kind of negligible, really. They do feed into the overall worlds and lore, but because they were kind of mobile outings, they weren't fantastic games, they were kind of limited to what they could be. But in a full-blown spin-off, as it were, I think it could go on in terms of a different arc or a different character and keep adding to that, certainly for as long as, like you said, Disney movies aren't going to stop anytime soon, But certainly now, even if you look at that Disney have Star Wars now, Kingdom Hearts could come out with Star Wars in it and that sort of thing, and there's always going to be something new that it could always tie into, so I reckon it probably will go on and probably keep going for now.
Well, I guess Final Fantasy itself has kept on going, just reboots with different characters and different storylines. So yeah. Well,
that's it, and it's kind of is that way. It's that you know that obviously their worlds don't kind of feed into each other, but like I say, it could be. It's for as long as there's Final Fantasy as well. There can be Kingdom Hearts, So as long as it's got the two to feed off of, then it could theoretically just keep going.
There is. Oh, sorry, James.
No, guys, I never mean to sound patronising with it, but this is one of those games as well that I don't like, as I just don't go near. Doesn't interest me. But when it's been so long in coming from the previous one, I'm always happy when people who like it are happy. Like, there's nothing worse than just a long wait for a game that you're looking forward to, and then it just falls on its backside. So the fact that this has made your list after it's like years between like the last proper version. So yeah, I'm happy that it actually hit the mark for you.
Yeah, and I think it kind of, like, even for people who didn't necessarily, because obviously we've had the re-release of 1 and 2 on the PlayStation. It came out it was released on the Xbox as well, I believe, eventually, wasn't it? Or is that still yet to come out?
I think it's coming to Game Pass. I think at XO19 they said that it's coming to Game Pass or something like that.
Yeah, so even for kind of like people who played it on the Xbox who haven't played the originals, or if they have played it, I think it's kind of, it's accessible enough that you could kind of pick it up and at least play it and enjoy it for what it is without paying too much attention to the whole background and lore and story of it, and at least just enjoy the fact that you're playing in these Disney worlds. And like you say, it is kind of sort of child orientated a bit more because of the way, like you say, you're playing Disney, Toy Story 4, Tangled, that sort of thing. It is kind of aimed at kids, but if you kind of dig a little bit deeper and kind of scratch below the surface, there is that RPG element below it as well that kind of there's more to it if you choose to do it, if you get what I mean. So it does kind of have that hook in it, that there's something for everybody in it as well.
I also liked, this was like my first Kingdom Hearts game, so that I jumped into on Xbox, and I love the fact that whenever you went to these different worlds, your characters were styled that way. They could have easily had the 4 characters that you had, Sora, Mickey, Goofy. They could have easily have been just those standard sprites, the standard characters. But when you went into the Monster Inc. world, they were kind of they were monsters. When you went to Toy Story, they looked like they were toys, and I just really enjoyed it. It was kind of what's happened, what's next, what's coming next. And when I kind of unlocked Monstropolis and knew that I was going to the Monster Inc. world, that was quite exciting. That was quite cool. So yeah, no, it's fantastic, awesome. There is some DLC coming, isn't there, this year?
I honestly, I haven't seen that, to be honest with you. So no, I mean, is that extra kind of story DLC? I'm guessing then, is it? Or...
Yes, yeah, no, it's a battle royale, 100
some extra keyblades and some extra skins and
100 sleeps. So James, you're number 3. What kind of what's at the bottom of your top list?
So this has lurked out of nowhere in recent times, but I actually started playing Outer Wilds. That is
right.
Wilds over Christmas. I tried to play this, I think, back during the summer. And I just downloaded it and played it for an hour or so while I think I was waiting for something else, or we were playing something online or something. But I just didn't give it the right amount of time, it turns out. During that hour-long session, it didn't really click. I sort of finished the tutorial, took off in a spacecraft, have a tiny poke around the nearest planet, but didn't really get wrapped up in what the game is. And over Christmas, I've been able just to, crack it open and just really start exploring the depths that it's got, and it's really good. And I think it might be higher if I'd have started playing this earlier and got deeper into it, because it just offers so many things that tick my boxes. Like, there's the exploration. You're sent out alone in the universe to explore different planets, to find other of your race that have gone exploring, to uncover traces of ancient races or alien buildings. So you've got that exploration aspect. You've got flight controls. Someone basically said this is modern day Solar Jet Man, which sold me at that point, because you're in this real. It's proper physics. You have to figure out how to fly a spacecraft and land on a planet. And there's a lot of helps and guides to actually get you going in-game itself. But there's that sense of control that you can fine-tune and scoot around in a tiny little pod. It's got elements of Hitman as well for me. Like, there's no assassinating, but it's a huge clockwork universe.
Yes.
Like the game, just every time you start, just the universe is in a set place and it all starts spinning and rotating in a certain way, and you can always find things at a certain place, certain time. And so it's got this puzzle box to it that you have to be in certain places to see things, or you have to wait for X, Y, and Z to happen to uncover something else. And just digging away at the layers and finding out what that means. Like I really don't want to say too many specifics, because half of the joy is uncovering them. But one of the time I got sucked through a black hole, and I was just lurking in space. And the first time I did it, I thought, well, this is rubbish. I've just basically got to sit down here until I die. I couldn't figure out how to easily kill myself, so I just had to sit there and wait for my rocket and oxygen to run out. Second time that accidentally happened, it happens a lot. Something else, because of the time in the run, had been sucked through the hole.
Oh,
and so
wow.
Something else that I couldn't have previously accessed for reasons was suddenly there, just floating in space. Wow. And I remove the locks, the doors, the height, the gravity, anything like that. It's like I can float through this window now and have a look at all that. And as soon as that happened, there was just a light bulb moment in my head going this is genius. This is something that I just want to keep on prodding. And so you can have runs where nothing happens. There's runs where you try and get places and you can't do, but then all of a sudden the magic happens, and it's just a wonderful game about exploration and uncovering lots of little bits of stories. And the game does a moderate job of helping you as well by just revealing hints and rumours in your spaceship as well, so that you can feel like you've just got this whole expanded universe to try and dig through, but they will give you pointers. They'll let you set waypoints and just slowly edge you on your way. And quite frankly, I don't know what the end result is. I don't know what I'm actually trying to do. But I'm enjoying just digging away at bits of the stories, finding out tales that are on this planet, or maybe there's someone on planet A that talks about something on planet B, and so you go off wandering over there, and it's just joining together this little puzzle box that they've put together, and I think it's just absolutely fabulous. Like there probably are more impactful games straight off, but if you give Outer Wilds the time, I think you'll be rewarded with something that is very deep and very rewarding to give a go.
So without spoiling it too much, like kind of, because this is one game where I've seen so many people say, I tried to play it, didn't get on with it, kind of bounced off, and I was one of those. But as I say, I found a few things. What would you say is kind of what was that moment? What should you be doing? So say for instance, like first day, you wake up, you've got to get your launch codes. What should you be doing in order to make sure that you know what to do next? Because I kind of found it, as much as it was an exploration game, it was one of those ones where, well, what do you want me to do? You want me to launch a ship, right? What do I need to do? Is it just go and talk to everybody, or is it just what?
I think that's a good first off, because one of the reasons that actually got me back into it is I was listening to a couple of Game of the Year podcasts before Christmas, and because I wasn't set on Outer Wilds as something I should play, I just started listening to the discussions about them. And I heard a couple of spoilers, but I heard an awful lot more about how like 5 different people had 5 different experiences, and despite them all playing for like 20-30 hours or something like that, they had seen things other people hadn't, and that just intrigued me. And they just gave me enough cues that I wanted to go and see this magical thing. And so the what I resolved after hearing about this is, like, on each of the planets there is another of your race who has gone out to explore prior. If you just go out and try and find those, that's probably like a really good starting point, because it means that you've seen the planets. They will probably tell you what is interesting to explore on that planet. And so you've got at least the hooks into, well, if I go here, I need to look for that. If I go to this planet, then I can see something else. And it's like an easy way in, because there's little smoke trails from where they're, not smoke trails, like smoke from a campfire on each of the planets to say this is where one of your race is. And that's probably like a good thing. That establishes what each of the planets are like, what happens on each of them, and where to go. But it's also the kind of thing that you need to have some time. I think if you played an hour one week and then came back and played an hour the next, it would probably be too much of a drop-off.
Yes.
It's because I had 4 hours one day. I could go, I'm just going to sink into this, and it's either going to hit me or not. And thankfully, those claws were sunk deep.
That's really good. That's really good, actually, because, like I say, I found that I had to go to a planet because someone said, "Oh, there was something that was happening on this planet." So I thought, "Oh, okay, I'll go there." But that's a really good tip, that we just kind of look for the other one of our species that's on.
Yeah, I forget what you're called, like Harthians or something.
Yes, yeah, okay, that's awesome. That's fantastic, because there's something about the music, the style, the art style, just wandering around that forest or the kind of level at the start. It's just really lovely. Even the opening scene is just lovely. The kind of start menu is just lovely. That whole kind of round, I wanted that as a backdrop, on my PC, because it was just so lovely. I want to love this game. I'm there. I want to love it. But maybe 2 things that you've just said there, kind of, there's one, do that, and then the other one is give it some time, because I've always just kind of an hour here or an hour there. But actually do what we should be doing when you're trying to get into a new game, and just give it a nice chunk of time, and then take it from there. Yeah.
It's everyone who's on the fence, just give it another shake. Give it another shake.
Nice. Absolutely. So that is Outer Wilds. Up at number 2 for me, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
You love your Cal lightsaber, don't you?
Oh, I do. Cal lightsaber was great. Everything that Steve was saying earlier is absolutely spot on. This was a game that just kind of really, I was looking forward to. It was the day after EXO. It was kind of had EXO, and then we went into kind of the tales of Cal lightsaber. And right from the start, as Steve was saying, right from the start, this is cinematic. I loved the start where you were going through. It really helped kind of set that scene in maybe not as kind of in your face as God of War, but it really did just kind of show you what you needed to do. And as you progressed, kind of going back into that game and just kind of keep going and upgrading, you really feel like you are kind of unlocking those Force abilities. And I played the whole way through, only in maybe a couple of sittings. I really was kind of full into this game, and it was just amazing. It wasn't perfect. There was some stuff that sounds like it's been patched out now, but this game was absolutely fantastic. It didn't give you too much. it kind of stayed. It kind of, there was 4 or 5 planets, but it meant that you had to kind of go back to those planets. You had a lot to explore. And as a Star Wars game, as you were saying, Steve, as a Star Wars game, this was a really tight, great Star Wars game. The lightsaber combat was lovely. I think I wasn't on story difficulty. I was on the next difficulty, and that really did challenge you. This was a game that it's not an easy game. I did find that I kind of see that respawn screen way too many times. And so press A to respawn just way too many times. And I did dip into story on a couple of the boss battles as well, because it was just a little bit too challenging, and I didn't want to get frustrated with it. But this game was just absolutely fantastic, and I was just enjoyed every minute of it. And again, similar to Luigi's Mansion, it's always the way, and my number one game's the same. It's always the way that when you finish a game and you're satisfied, you're happy, you're enjoying the credits, they're there, but you want more. And it's not because it's like that game didn't satisfy you, it's because you want to stay in this world for like a little bit longer. And Luigi's Mansion and Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order were definitely that, and my number one, which we'll get to in a bit, was definitely that. It was a game that I just wanted to just stay around for a little bit longer and use those skills that I'd honed. Hopefully there will be a new game plus, and maybe it might be worthwhile jumping into that. But I just absolutely loved Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, and that's something I forgot to say. Actually, I'll mention when I initially talked about it, is the difficulty. Because I think I've started it on the same as you, and I think the second level difficulty in terms of the story. The story, and even that, just when it plunks you in, and I know the idea is that you're still kind of not an apprentice, but you're kind of learning to be a Jedi, and you're honing your skills, and you're kind of relearning the ways of the Force, that sort of thing. But on that first world that you're in, just those simple monsters that are kind of there in front of you, even that is just kind of is enough to knock you back, because you're not overpowered. You can't just, it is kind of, if you go in Star Wars in terms of, it's a lightsaber, it could just lob somebody's head off or what have you. It doesn't even, it's not that you have to kind of tackle a monster and kind of learn its traits and how it attacks, and you've got to dodge and block and things like that. You can't just hack and slash it. It is kind of, you have to time those moves, don't you? And it does kind of early on punish you if you don't learn how to appreciate the kind of combat and the kind of the intricacies of each sort of enemy that you face as well, which I quite like. So that was my first initial gripe, but then it's kind of, no, let's take some time with it, learn how sort of bosses or enemies are attacking, and then kind of go from there. And then once you kind of understand that and appreciate that, it becomes a lot easier to kind of go into battles rather than just kind of trying to hack and slash everything open, that it just lobs its head or arm or tail off or something.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is, like, when you start that game and you go to, there are those monsters, the kind of ongo bongo or whatever they're called. That monster is there, and it really challenges you to the point where I was almost standing in the doorway trying to cheekily slash it when it kind of got near me. I was really cheesing it, because I died about 4 or 5 times, and the only way I could do it was I was just outside, it couldn't get out the door. But then you go back at the end, because you go back to, you can kind of, the whole world is open to you, so you can jump to any planet and get the rest of the collectibles. I went back at the end with all of my upgrades, and I could have it head on. I could attack it head on. I managed to kind of grab its tongue. There was an achievement for that. There was all that sort of stuff. You managed to be able to do that, so it really did show how your character went from this Jedi that was just kind of re-unlocking or kind of reaffirming itself with the Force, to actually now I'm a badass. And that's why when it finished, I was like, I want to know more about Kyle lightsaber. I want some more missions. Now that I'm fully Jedi'd up, without being too far, like Force Unleashed, where you could pull down a Star Destroyer. I wasn't that. Yeah, exactly. I wasn't that kind of powerful, but I could play in that sandbox.
Yeah, like you say, if there's a kind of a sequel, or if there is any sort of extra content that comes out, if it kind of lets you play fully powered, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of not sort of restrict it, but how they kind of match your kind of expectations in terms of match the challenge and still make it interesting enough, like you say, to not just fly through and just you're an unstoppable machine. But it'll be interesting to see how they then kind of build that world around it, so it kind of, the challenge is still as equal as what it is when we're still learning.
So that's my number 2. That's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Steve, what threequel made your number 2?
So my second threequel was Borderlands 3, which I think is quite easily the game that I've poured the most hours into last year, which is kind of why it sits at my number 2. The number 1, which we'll come on to, is a different reason, but to me that's kind of the perfect Borderlands game in terms of what we've had yet, and this is kind of, Borderlands is built up to this kind of point now, and I haven't still, I don't think, played it in co-op. Probably think I've played it a couple of times co-op, but even on its own, it is kind of the polished Borderlands package for me, and that is probably as close to, if not already, the perfect game that you could have expected it to be. You know, it's just, it's more of the same, but it's also not, in a way. You know, there's enough in it, you know, in terms of new sort of the world, the mechanics, the guns, the people, that sort of, there's enough that's slightly different to make it still feel new, but it's still, there's still enough in it to make you feel like you know you're playing Borderlands. And again, it's just how that game looks, how it feels, how it runs, you know, on the X. It is just silky smooth, it looks fantastic, and it is just a game that when it first came out, I literally just sat and I could just spend 3 or 4 hours in a week and just sat playing that and just going through it and just knocking side quest after side quest off, just doing a story mission, then going to a new world or area, knock a few side missions off, then go back to the story and just keep rinsing and repeating, because it kind of just, it builds nicely throughout, and you're not really there for the story with Borderlands. Obviously it has one and you follow it, and if you've played 1 and 2, you kind of go along with what the story is in 3 as well. But excuse me, if you kind of just want to play it for what it is and appreciate the gunplay, the guns, the missions, just how bonkers it actually is, you can put that to one side, and it is just, like I say, it is just Borderlands, and anyone who's played it will know what you mean by saying it is just a Borderlands game. Do you know what I mean? Just the craziness of the world, the characters, the monsters, the missions. You know, isn't this one where it's like that had does it have a hamburger launcher or something, one of the guns or something? It's just like, there was something like that. It's just absolutely mental, and it's like when they're making that many guns, there are just some crazy guns that they come out with, and that in itself, because everything's kind of random with how it comes out with the looting and things, it kind of makes it different for each person that plays it without kind of spoiling it too much, you know, because there's that much variety in it. Each kind of person has their own sort of little story in a way, in terms of, oh, I've got this gun and it does this and it blah blah blah, you know, that sort of thing. And for me, without looking, I've probably put like 40 or 50 hours into that game quite easily.
Wow. And
it is just, for me, like I say, it is just as close to, if not perfect, a game or a Borderlands game as you could have expected, really.
So what's the best gun? What's the most random ass gun that you've got in that game?
Well, I mean, I haven't actually physically seen one myself, but I've seen that like it was more of in a sort of like in a preview of what guns actually came up. But like I say, there was something stupid. Like I'm sure there was what is it now? There's obviously the ones.
Isn't there a gun that fires guns?
Yeah, there's a one that fires guns out. So like the gun that fires other guns and things like that. But I'm sure there was something mental, like it was fired hamburgers or something like something like that. And it's just, I mean, even if you go to like not the sort of like the bonkers ones, but even if you go down to the elemental ones and the ones that explode and bouncing bullets, and if you get a headshot, it pings off to another person, hits them in the head. You know, it gives you another headshot, that sort of thing. The variety is just crazy. You know, it just makes you wonder how many different variants they can actually come with, and who is just sat there. You know, they must, like in a boardroom somewhere, the long list of guns that they need to, like a tick list, we need to this. So, but it's like just the power up for is it the gunner? It's his little turret that comes out and it starts shouting at enemies. You know, it's a little turret that just pops up and it starts shouting at enemies, and not expletive as such, but just like harassing them and just hollering at them. So there are just odd little things in there that are a little bit nuts, but it kind of makes it what it is. You know, that's what makes Borderlands tick, really.
Yes, it is. It is, like you say, it is more Borderlands, but it's a polished, fun version of Borderlands. I've only played about 9 hours. I'm just looking on Xbox. You played 42 hours so far, Steve.
So yeah,
that's mammoth.
So yeah, that's I'll probably quite confidently say that's probably the most I've played on a single game this year or last year, easily. which.
And they keep coming out with new stuff as well, don't they? There's like more DLC packs and things like that, and they're not done with that yet.
No.
There's still a lot of support for that game in 2020 and beyond.
Yeah, and that's it. And it's kind of an ongoing thing, isn't it? Like you say, they supported Borderlands 2 really well with the expansion passes, and they just dropped Borderlands 2, the Borderlands Handsome Collection, just before this came out, to kind of keep the hype going on this on Game Pass. And if you look back at the DLC that's on there, again, it kind of is more of the same, but it is absolute madness on some of the new, like there's pirates on a spaceship, but it's like skiffs almost from Star Wars, fighting sandworms and things, so it is just. It's just the kind of possibilities for them seem to be endless.
Absolutely, it was very cool. It was very good because they dropped the Handsome Jack collection on Game Pass, but it also was on PlayStation Plus as well, wasn't it? So it was like, right, 3 is coming, get ready. There was some additional DLC they brought out for 2 as well that kind of bridged the gap between 2 and 3. Yeah. So it was a big year for Borderlands last year, and it was good fun. It was good fun. So James, you're number 2.
Yes, that is Control.
Awesome.
Which, again, I wasn't going to immediately get this day one, because I think a lot of the previews also coming out of E3 or around that time, there was no massive hype train behind Control. But when it hit, it seemed to interest people in different ways. Like listening to certain websites, they love the lore building. Other websites love like the psychic powers and the battling around there. But for me, it was just like the atmosphere. Like it was an X-Files off the hook. You just from the moment that you walk into that building, they just sow the seeds of a mystery, and with just the place dripping with questions. Yes. Like you walk into this ancient concrete versions of an FBI, and within seconds you found there's no receptionist, there's like all security guards are gone, but you find a memo saying that people can't bring scissors and shoehorns and stuff like that, and definitely not mobile phones. And it's like, okay, this is a bit weird, you're just trying to be kooky for kooky's sake. But as you progress through that first set of offices and just picking up memos about various, ridiculous things being redacted, about objects coming to life, it starts building the foundations of something that I think it really delivers on. You look around and find sub-bosses of like a garden flamingo, like one of the garden ornaments of a flamingo, like starts attacking you. There's traffic lights that just warp the surroundings around them. It pays off, I think, so much of that gentle build, and then just delivers at the back end of it all. Like the combat is so-so. I'll happily say combat is so-so, but the building of what it presents you with, the powers that you get created, just going around that world, exploring it, finding rooms full of clocks, because clocks, and it just keeps giving. It is probably one. It's reasonably linear, I think, in the way that some of the actual story develops, but it really rewards you for going off the beaten track, for finding the furnace that wants you to feed people to it, for exploring the fridge that is someone has to stare at the fridge. Why can't you just turn away? No, someone has to stare at the fridge. Okay, cool it, man.
I never did help that guy. I left him.
Oh, he's still there.
yeah. In my game, he's still there. Poor sod.
It's the actual story. I think I could take or leave, but the world it built around it was second to none, and just everything from the janitor, the ashtray maze, so many things that you find in the world is just just chef's kiss. Lovely.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, for me, that made my number one. My game of the year, your number 2, my number 1, my game of the year is Control. Because all of those things that you were saying and more, the conversation that you and I had on the podcast when you were telling me about the thing that I never found that you found, I still think you made it up, which was about that planes were actually monsters, and in the sky, and there was all of that. There was a room full of Post-it notes that I found.
There's like a pinata room, and I couldn't find find
yes.
it.
Oh, really? It was just like, and it's just all of those things, and just hearing, like, as you say, like people's different things. And I loved you say, the combat. I agree. You know, there were, towards the end, you really did start. You almost kind of just got into a rhythm of maybe a couple. I don't know about you, but I just kind of had. There was a few things. There was my go-to power and my go-to gun, and I ended up just kind of using those. I really liked being able to kind of take over people. You know, when you unlocked that and you were able to take that over. But that was a game that I just didn't want to stop playing. I couldn't wait for my next session with Control. It was one of those things, and there was a moment in the game that I won't spoil too much, but there was a moment in the game where a song starts playing, and for me, that was my favourite gaming moment of this year, of 2019, was that moment. And I wanted to play it again when that happened, because I just really enjoyed it. I think, even though it's my number one, I kind of feel like it let itself down a little bit at the end, but still, that doesn't stop that being my favourite thing to play all year. I think it was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think that might be where I've slightly soured on the combat. Just that bit at the end, they might have overstayed its welcome. I think like the biggest negative for me was the fact that checkpoints, and I think it had to do this given the world that it was there. If you died, you went back to a physical checkpoint in the world rather than a checkpoint in the mission. Yes. And so if you died on that last bit, you had to go back to the previous bit and come forward. And so that great. But yeah, the combat, like the actual powers you employ through it was lovely. Like, to begin with, like when you first discovered the building, you've basically got a pistol. Like, and that's only because you'll get effectively given it. You're not exactly touting to begin with. But then you get the psychic ability where you can throw stuff. And to begin with, you are just like lobbing bins around.
Yes.
And then at the end, you're just like pulling mainframes out of the wall, chunks of concrete, and just creating this, even like this barrier. I didn't use the shield much, but just seeing the fact that you could rip out pieces of the floor and create a shield around you, it really thought about how to be fun with these powers rather than practical. Like, it didn't matter if nothing was around you. You'd just pull rebars out the floor and do stuff with them. And it just felt like you were just walking around like a god at some point. You talk about Star Wars. I guess there are so many force powers, I guess, in Control at this point.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and I know they released I think they've got some DLC coming out for this one as well.
Yes.
And I think it's extra timed missions, but it's going to be the narrative DLC I want to see. Because there is so much potential with these objects of power, with these things out in the world that the agency is trying to pull back. Like, there's scope for just it's almost like an X-Files mini-series of like, go out to this place and pull it back, go out to this place, or control this thing that we've brought back. There's just scope for imagination coming out the wazoo on this one.
Absolutely, and I kind of feel that there were some real high points in the game. Like you say, when the first time you pulled a printer towards you, but as you did, you took out maybe 3 enemies on the way.
Yes.
You know, that was just lovely. The first time you're like, I could do this, or that big model of the town.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You know, the recreation of the town in that room. I loved that. You know, it kind of kept doing those moments where I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. Or the first time that you go to that walkway and you've got to get to a door. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll just leap. I'll see what happens if I leap. I died. I went back, and then it was like, do this 3 times. And you pressed X like 3 times, and it changed the world.
Motel.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And I was just like, wow. And it was just like, click, 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 boom. Everything changed, and I was just like, wow, I love this game.
They used that really effectively, I thought, as well, because it's a change of pace from, like, you won't get attacked. This is a pure puzzle-solving situation as well. Yes. So they used it sparingly as well. I think just, it was only a handful of times throughout the whole adventure, wasn't it? But it just came in at these nice punctuation moments to break up the chapters, or just signify that you're going to get another message from the director. Because some of those little bits that they film, like Remedy, are always good with pulling out the camcorder and just doing a bit of a skit in front of it. But again, they deliver with the It was the chap who played Alan Wake, wasn't he? He was like the one of the scientists, just explaining everything that was going on. And then at some point, you just catch him singing. He's like either been drinking or just like kicking his hair down. He's just singing away in front of it all. It's just, there's so many just little nuggets to back up a really solid world and a solid gameplay experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just absolutely fantastic. And like I say, there's 2 pieces of DLC. One of them is Alan Wake themed, isn't it, as well? So they're kind of linking into that Alan Wake world as well, which I just absolutely love the fact that they've done that as well. So yeah, Control is James's number 2, my number 1. Steve, what was your favourite game of the year?
So the final of my trilogy of threequels, and the one that not that I've played the most of, but excuse me, that I've probably played and enjoyed the most of is Luigi's Mansion, which obviously we touched upon. So much appreciation by Mr. Thomas with his Luigi appreciation T-shirt on. Like I was saying earlier, it's just the actual, like, to me, it's as much about the time that you put in a game, but also the actual fun that you have in a game. You know, you can like a game, but not necessarily have fun with it. You know, that's my thing. Is
yes.
Like, how does it make you feel? You know, does it make you laugh? Does it make you happy? Do you feel good about after playing it? Because for me, a lot of games that I enjoy playing the games, but do I actually necessarily have fun? Do I come away feeling happy, or having smiled or laughed or whatever? You'd probably say most of the time no, because either it's a game that challenges you to the point where you're cursing and throwing the controller, then you feel like an achievement and satisfied that you've done it, but there's not many games you come away from that actually make you happy, or that you've actually enjoyed playing. There's the rare games like this for you, Antony, sort of Viva Pinata, that sort of thing. There's a few games that do that, and it's rare that happens. And I think sometimes fun gets confused for time that you've played, or hours that you've put into it, and that sort of thing. And I think that kind of gets overshadowed sometimes, fun and enjoyment. And for me, just from a point of view of, I enjoyed what I've played, and the fact that by rights I'm not the biggest of Nintendo fans out there. I've got the Switch because I enjoy playing the Nintendo titles, but I'm not as much of a Nintendo fan as James is, in terms of obviously his Luigi fanboyism. But for me, I was Sega, not Nintendo growing up, so it's never been something that I've owned consistently. So for me to enjoy a first-party Nintendo title as much as I did in Luigi, that kind of indicates that I've enjoyed it a lot more than what I have anything else, and just that to kind of impress me as much as it did, then it kind of gone a bit above and beyond what any other game would, and what I actually expected it to do as well. So yeah.
It's I share so many of those sentiments. Like, there are probably grander and bigger and better, by some metric games out there, but Luigi's Mansion, just from beginning to end, just put a smile on my face. Yeah. I occasionally I look at games through the lens of like how did they build this, and one of the things that just kept coming back to me about Luigi's Mansion was like the amount of custom art assets, animations, models, backgrounds they had to create for it, because they were not satisfied with just creating. Okay, fair enough, you've got like the same 4 or 5 template ghosts or so, but every time you came across a new level, you'd find them sitting, like, having coffee in a little shop. They'd be wearing maids' outfits doing that. There'd be a whole, like, the Egyptian thing that we've spoken about. They'd be wrapped up in bandages. Like, love and dedication and just an attention to detail was just so overwhelmingly applied to this. Like, it didn't matter if it probably took another couple of weeks to do X, Y, or Z, but it made that set piece, that look, that level just so much better. And just the fun about going around and exploring and seeing like the different rooms, the different floors, and just what they had put in for Luigi to, shakily cry Mario, wobbling through the corridors. It was just so heartwarming the entire way round. It was just a love letter of what you can do if you just adore a game.
And I kind of feel that the one thing that I loved about it was that some levels would be as big as they are deep, and some levels were just a boss battle. That was it. It was almost like you go into one thinking this is going to be another level, but it wasn't. It was just there was the museum level where you just had the open area, but then you had a boss battle, and it was just really, it just kept you on your toes. And as I was saying before, just looking at the animation around Luigi, he was scared, he was funny, he was laughing, he was jiving, he was getting funky, and I just loved seeing that so much. And this game was just wonderful, and it was good to see that it sold. I think GameIndustry.biz was saying that it was the biggest Switch game of 2019, Luigi, which is great because Pokemon Sword and Shield came out, and it was still kind of at that point when they were saying it was the biggest Switch game of 2019. So it's nice to see that maybe more and more people have been picking up Luigi's Mansion, but it's great. The final boss was a little tricky, but it was fun. It's the thing that I loved was it was almost kind of everything that you had learned for all those 15 floors you got to exercise right at the end, and that's kind of one of the things that is always great about kind of Nintendo games. It's like all those things that you have done in a way that Control tried to do, but it annoyed you. It's like all those people that you've seen, you're now going to fight against them. But Luigi's Mansion in that final big boss battle just kind of took everything that you've learned and just kind of like made you kind of reuse every button, every move, just to kind of defeat that final boss. And I really enjoyed it.
There were so many floors that just wanted to mix things up as well. Because it wasn't just like here's an explorer level, here's the boss battle as well. They wanted to try and use the physics, I think, in interesting ways. So there were the puzzles, but then that I don't think everyone got on with the basement level where there's the water and the rubber ring. But just the fact they wanted to try and do that again. Yes, it's like here's something different, and then you can use it as a cannon. You can use it as just what can we do with physics? I was just still overjoyed that you just had to pull away like curtains or so, but there were even on the first few floors where you had to pay attention to certain mirrors to see there was a hidden gap at the back. There was just like little nuggets here and there that just allowed you to play with the tool set they gave you.
Yes. Or the level that keeps changing as well. When you go in a room, you kind of go somewhere else. So you're looking at the map, but then when you walk out of the room, you were in a different.
Yes.
That was so, because that really took me a while to get my head around that, but that was fantastic.
Yeah, and I was going to say what you were just saying there, James, about the level with the basement with where you're in the dinghy in the water. It's kind of its beauty was sometimes its simplicity, like you say, in terms of how you can use that Hoover in different ways, just to kind of accelerate yourself and pull yourself along in that dinghy, and that level alone just made me put it down a couple of times just out of frustration to either navigate around the objects that you need to negotiate around and get around the ghosts that were dressed as sharks under the water, that sort of thing, and just the simplicity in, like you say, just having to suck yourself towards the wall and like pull a lever that's a rope dangling down, and the bits with Luigi and that sort of thing. It is just it's the way that
Luigi, I'd forgotten about Luigi.
Good old Luigi, yeah.
Luigi is the character of 2019, surely. He is just like
all sidekicks. Yeah. But it's just that. It's
honourable mention.
Yeah, and it's just the fact that it is just, in essence, a Hoover. But the way in which that they implement that, in terms of the different ways that you can use it, and it doesn't seem to get boring. It still feels fresh, and like you say, in every different level and every floor, they still manage to do something a little bit different to keep it, engaging and not boring, like you say, Antony. It's just like every time you feel like there's something that you've already learnt before to kind of take into the next floor. It's like you say, if they've got ghosts with sunglasses on or shields or whatever, then you kind of learn to fire a plunger and pull the shield out of its hands, or do the smash with the Hoover to kind of knock the glasses off the face, that sort of thing. So it's kind of a culmination of all that, and it's just kind of a step by step and a learning progress throughout, and it is just a kind of a masterpiece, really, as it were, in terms of how to actually achieve it and actually pull that sort of thing off.
Absolutely. I just love, and one of my favourite, the animation on the ghosts as well. As much as kind of Luigi got some fine animation, the ghosts were just incredible. The big red ones, they were just like big and clumsy. There's one level where you're in the gym and you're kind of faced with two of them as a boss, and just that battle alone just really kind of made me smile. That was just, again, as you were saying, Steve, it's that fun, and I think there wasn't a moment where you didn't have fun with that game. And even the challenging boss battle had kind of brought the fun.
That's what it's all about, isn't it? Fun at the end of the day.
Yeah. Exactly. So Luigi's Mansion is your number one game. We're calling Luigi as character of the year. James, take us home with Game of the Year 2019. What was the top of your list this year?
As much as I do love Luigi, I mean, we agreed on it a while back that Luigi's Mansion was going to be Game of the Year for the Sparks anyway. So I felt I should give my number one spot to Slay the Spire. Earlier on in the year, this just completely absorbed me. It is a roguelike card game where you can take three different heroes, all with their different skill sets, through a series of dungeons, just defeating little monsters and big monsters, trying to get through to the end of the run where there's an even bigger monster. But for me, it was just the pure mechanics. Like we spoke about, like the absolute love that was showered upon Luigi, the world itself, the clockwork mechanism of Outer Worlds. But this year, honestly, just the way they put together a deck of cards just won me over. Just like the pure mechanics and the balancing and the play between them all, because they just produced a game that made me want to keep going back and trying different combinations. Like, on one hand, you had just a warrior that would just go out and kick the bejesus out of anything in front of it, but you could basically try and tout them as someone that could sacrifice their own health and or to try and take down others. There was someone who was dealing with poison. There was others like had magic orbs that floated around you, and the whole card balance was about trying to dispel these orbs but not take too much. They was just so wonderfully put together, and you never knew really which deck you were going to get, because you would get it as you went along, so your strategy would have to change on the fly. And the more time I invested in learning those decks, the more I got from it about how to tailor my run, what I wanted to do, trying different strategies. So it might not sound as exciting or as grand as, Control or Star Wars or so, but just the pure mechanical interplay of all these cards and the options, the possibilities that every run gave me, I found just engrossing. I think I bought this on Xbox and on PC and on Switch at various points throughout the year as it came out on different guises and different releases. But I just kept wanting to go on and play it and just keep going back and trying new things. And it gave this really nice experimental mode as well, almost like the deck of the day. I can't remember what the daily challenges.
Yes.
And that just allowed almost like a vent as well. If each of the prime runs were this hardcore, how far you can get, the decks were just this over the top. Here's a nothing but poison. Here is nothing but almost suicide cards. Here's nothing but insane monsters to battle against. It gave you a chance to try something stupid alongside these challenging runs. And I thought it was a really nice counterpoint to it. So it's simple, it's elegant, and I really, really love Slay the Spire.
Yes. Oh, that's a good number one. I remember just sitting on the train to Manchester playing that on my Switch, and before you do it, I was there, the 2.5 hour journey had just disappeared. It had maybe one or two runs, or even there was one run on one journey, and it was just perfect. It was just such a great game for the Switch. It was a really good Switch game.
Yeah, I think it does the right... For me, there is a sweet spot for roguelites as well. So the fact they would last... If you had a good run, I think it would last about an hour. Like that's where my usual good runs would take me. And so I can invest an hour. I think Dead Cells that you mentioned earlier on in maybe pre-show chat, I didn't like Dead Cells as I got better at it, because it would take like an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours if I was taking my time but getting far. And I just felt that was too much time to invest and then fall back. Whereas felt I was getting knowledge, I was knowing what decks I wanted to build, and it was only an hour, and I didn't feel that was too much time to burn on a run. Yeah, it just hit everything just so.
Yes. Oh, such a good game. So we have it there. We've got Slay the Spire from James, Control from me, Luigi's Mansion, and then obviously Lost Spark game is really Luigi's Mansion for the 2019. Superb. I mean, is there any other game that you guys maybe want to kind of give a shout out to in your kind of that maybe didn't make your top three? Or are you happy?
I want to give credit for a couple of them. Like, I won't go in depth. So Cadence of Hyrule. So Crypt of the Necrodancer I introduced to you and Darren a few years ago, and this is the Zelda spin-off. And it wasn't necessarily a good Zelda, and it wasn't necessarily a good Crypt of the Necrodancer. I think it made too many compromises between the two. But just to see the Zelda franchise being given out for someone to try something, I thought was wonderful. And also just the remix soundtrack. That was, just the remix version of the Legend of Zelda theme when you first start is absolutely brilliant. So really enjoyed that. And also Baba Is You, which was the insanely tricky puzzle game way back at the probably like March, April time, as you tried to push around blocks that basically would control the rules of the level in like a top-down old-school Zelda style. Insanely hard. Unless you knew what you were doing, that was insanely easy. It was one of those, there was no in-between, but I just really loved the concept as it was so fresh and new.
That was one where it was kind of you are Baba, Baba is you, and there was like Baba is water, then you could go across water and that sort of stuff, and that was just...
and then you could be water, and then you control all the water
Yes.
on the world, or water is win, and then you just had to walk into the water. But it was... the number of combinations that you could create over it was just mind-boggling.
I love it. I was thinking about that game again, kind of for a flight. I was thinking about that game. I was thinking I would love to just be on a flight, just playing that, and then just kind of getting lost in that. And if they, and you wouldn't have internet, so you would just have to rely on you and your wits and just kind of play that every now and then. That's one of the ones that's on my list for my upcoming flights. That's fantastic. Steve, anything from you? Outside of any other threequel that you want to mention?
Actually, no. My threequels are all done now, so I've got them all out of the way. So the only two that I really want to give a shout out to, first one is Outer Worlds, not Outer Wilds, which is kind of that was included in Game Pass from day one, if memory serves me correctly. Which again, kind of harking back to what we said about Game Pass, is just obviously the quality in there, but just as an RPG which does what it does and does it well. I think we and you spoke about it, and I think you and James spoke about it separately in terms of it's kind of an RPG, but it's not like a sprawling RPG. It's obviously, it looks great, and the world is designed great, and the gameplay is great in terms of it's obviously kind of, given its heritage, it's as close to Fallout as you could possibly get without it being a Fallout game, but it's not as expansive as Fallout, and it's just like, I think James put it perfectly in terms of when he was speaking about it, is that you can see things in the distance, you can see like mountains in the distance, and you can see all this world, but it's not actually something you can go and see or explore. You can't actually reach it because it's kind of a bit sort of ring fenced, but that's at no detriment to the game. It kind of benefits from that because it's kind of, yes, it's an RPG, but it's kind of limited in terms of what you can do, but sometimes it's nice not to have the choice of wandering about for hours and hours and hours to actually find where you go, and it's kind of, this is your mission, this is where you need to go, and obviously you're limited to where you can and can't go, and I actually quite enjoyed that, in terms of actually not having a sort of a daunting, like when you walk out of the vault in Fallout, or when you first enter the world in Skyrim and you just plonked in a world, or Breath of the Wild, where you just plonked in the world and then it's like, off you go. It's nice to have that sort of path kind of a little bit sort of highlighted to you to actually go and venture on and do what you want to do, and you can venture off it a little bit but not too much. But I think you guys mentioned it as well, but I actually quite liked that game. Not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but as a kind of a filler for Fallout, given we've had Fallout 4's quite a few years old now, and Fallout 76 didn't really hit the mark in terms of scratching that itch. It's nice to have something from the people who worked on the likes of Fallout New Vegas to actually bring their own game to the table, but was very reminiscent of the art style and the gameplay to kind of bring a game that kind of fill that void, really. And then the second game, that I wanted to mention that was out to the jury, which we had to put to the independent adjudicator that is Mr. Matthew Thomas, was Call of Duty Mobile, which I know is a very sort of contentious decision and sort of choice, but I've not played this year's Call of Duty, I've not touched Modern Warfare at all in any sort of capacity, but since Call of Duty Mobile came out, it's kind of something that's hooked me and a couple of the lads from work, and especially, I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but whilst we were quiet over work, when we were sat at work, most of the day was spent just sat playing Call of Duty Mobile. So I've even downloaded it on my work iPhone, so to the point that I'm not using my own data on my own phone or my own memory on my own phone. And then one of the lads got his iPad. He was sat in the office on his iPad Pro playing on his window, basically his window pane. Another guy on his own iPhone, and it's like how they've actually implemented it and what they've actually done. I think they need to be applauded and hats off to it, because it's been seemingly seamless in terms of the actual rollout of it, and I've not really had any issues with it at all since playing, apart from probably my own incompetence. There's no sort of real issues with its stability, how it plays, how it controls. No one seems to get any sort of benefit or boost from buying sort of like the battle pass, that sort of thing, because everything's cosmetic. Nothing gives you any boosts in weapons that do extra damage, give you any extra armor, any perks or anything like that. Everyone's kind of on a level playing field, and playing Call of Duty on a mobile phone doesn't sound like it should work, but it does, and it is just, and even looking at it, the actual quality of the graphics itself for a mobile game is very good. The graphics are very good on it, and it's not obviously the same as what it is on the console, but for what it does and what it is, it's been a very successful launch, and it is actually a very good game. And I don't know if any of you guys have played it or not, but for me, I've actually gone back to it and played it, whereas with normal Call of Duty, I kind of can leave it. I'm kind of go hot and cold, but I have found myself, even when I'm at home, just jumping on it and having a couple of games on it every now and again on a night, just because it kind of scratches that itch for me.
I guess it's super accessible for that as well. The fact that you can just do it on the sofa. And you just think, I don't even have to move from this point in time. I don't even have to stand up and find a controller.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of, the implementation of it is the fact that you can choose to shoot yourself by having a button prompt on the screen. Or the mod I play it on is that it automatically shoots when you're aimed at a person. So as soon as you hover over that person when you're aiming down the sights or firing from the hip, as soon as it registers you're looking at them for more than kind of like a millisecond, it'll automatically fire for you. So it kind of takes out that sort of human error sort of thing and make it tricky in terms of aiming and shooting on such a small screen or a phone. It kind of eliminates that for you, so it kind of makes it easier and more accessible for everybody as well, which again, the actual implementation of that to make it accessible for everybody, it's kind of been well designed and well thought out as well. So that's kind of my honourable mention, because it, by rights, like I say, it's something that probably shouldn't work and not something that people would thought would work, but it seems very popular, and every time you go on it you don't struggle to get in a game. There seems to be plenty of people that are actually playing it as well.
Awesome. Excellent stuff. And I think I've just got one, and I think my kind of honourable mention goes off to Link's Awakening. I had never played Link's Awakening before, so I went in kind of fresh, and so I wasn't aware of the puzzles and how things kind of all path together, and it did break my brain for a little bit till I kind of realised what this game needed from me. But I absolutely loved Link's Awakening. The art style of Link's Awakening was just so adorable. This was such an amazing game. Just being able to, every time you pop back into the world, the entire world was intact, so you got to go and chop all of everything down all over again. It was just fun. And the puzzles, the final boss, all of that, it was so good. So I just think that Link's Awakening kind of, amongst all of these amazing games that we're talking about, kind of Link's Awakening for the Switch kind of deserves a mention, because it is just such a, I think it came out in the summer, and it was definitely one of those games that I just couldn't stop playing throughout the summer. So it was just fantastic.
Yep, it was. I played it through myself as well, and it's quite a nice length Zelda as well.
Yes,
I think because it came on the Game Boy and back in the day, like it's not like a 40-hour epic. You can probably do it in about 10-12 hours or so. But again, it's got a few nice variants. It's not a true classic in terms of the dungeons, but it's pleasant. It looks really nice, and it's definitely worth a dabble.
Yes. And there was, I think once I found that I could talk to that person, the telephone booths or the telephone trees, and then that kind of all made sense. And then after that, it was just, as you say, they weren't that tricky. I think there was only maybe one dungeon that really kind of taxed your brain. I think it was maybe the penultimate dungeon that really kind of, where you had to line up the balls and things like that. I think that one was kind of one of those, but the rest of it was just, it was just such a great game. Such a great game. So that was Link's Awakening, and that wraps up Game of Year 2019 for the Lost Sparks. Some amazing games. Right, we're on to next year now, on to 2020. But that's about it for this podcast. We'll be back next week for the normal podcast with lots of news, more of what we've been playing, etc. But don't forget, you can keep up with us at gamerstheLostSpark.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter at Lost Spark Pod. James, where can people catch up with you, sir?
People can find me as Big Sheep on Twitter, Xbox, and Etsy.
Excellent stuff. And Steve, where can people catch up with you?
So I'm SteveCat91 on the Xbox. I'm Cartera on Xbox. On the PlayStation Network. And then for my gaming one, I am at Steve_Carter91 on Twitter.
And your beer one
is Points of Brew on both Twitter and Instagram. Thank you for the shout out.
No worries. with the best hashtag ever at the moment, which is it Cars and Craft or
yes.
Craft and Cars?
Yeah, hashtag. I can't remember which way. It's Cars and Craft. I think it's Cars and Craft I've got. So yeah, given that I work for a car company, I've kind of gone to just slyly taking pictures of beer and vehicles and some fancy cars that we've got in, but obviously trying not to condone drink driving at the same time, so don't drink and drive out there, boys and girls. That is the message. Appreciate the beer and the cars, but separately. That is the message.
And that your kind of first crafting cars, that was a Ferrari, wasn't it, under that top?
Yeah. Sadly, they kind of prepared it for a delivery as I was working on the Saturday for the Monday, but it was a Ferrari Portofino. So I didn't want to risk taking its little sheath off of it, for risk of scratching it or damaging it. But yes, it was a nice little Ferrari for the first one.
Oh my lord! It's all downhill from there.
Yeah. Well, I did one today, and it was an Audi e-tron, so the fully electric Audi, their SUV.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm kind of besotted with at the moment. I quite like them, so I've just posted that today. So, but yeah, I quite the future of electric vehicles. I'm quite excited by.
Excellent stuff, superb. That is Points of Brew and Crafting Cars and Craft. Oh,
either way around, I'll probably do it differently each time I post it. To be honest with you, so.
just use both hashtags just to be sure.
Yeah, hashtag Craft, hashtag Cars. Yes, superb. And for me, I am Chessman on Xbox Live and Nintendo Switch. PS-Chessman on the PlayStation Network, and also Chessman on Chessman UK on Twitter. But don't forget, if you have any feedback, please send it to our email address. That's feedback@gamersoflostspark.com. That's about it, guys. We made it through our Game of the Year. So say goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, and hopefully you make it through all the rambling.
Bye.
A little Stuart impression to finish off.
That's Stu.
Bye. Bye. Dolby Atmos.
Sorry I couldn't make it.
I was too busy looking at a big screen.
We could just do his list. Yeah, number 3 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Number 2, Gears of 5. Number 1, Star Wars.
Did you just say Gears of 5?
Gears of 5.
Gears of 5.
Been recording too long.